Here, they dropped one of the indicators. Indicator 14 is not being scored any longer. I'll touch on it briefly, but for whatever reason, it was decided not to be included in the rating. There's 4 critical indicators. Those are the first 4. If you don't pass any one of those critical ones, you automatically flunk. They're very critical and they're very important. And then there's other factors. There's actually 5, 4, 6, 16, 17, and 20. They call them ceiling indicators. Just because you might not pass it fully, you don't lose all credit, but if you don't meet some criteria, there's no way you can get the maximum points. You get lesser points because of some criteria. And then let's start going through the criteria. The first 4, like I said, are critical indicators, but they're pretty important. Did you get your audit done and turned in time? We did. Did you have an unmodified opinion on your audit, which means you had a clean audit? Yes, we did. Number 3 was the school district compliance with payment terms. We paid all our debts on time. We weren't behind on any payments. And then they do a general look at, we're making all our payments to TRS on time, Workforce Commission, IRS, other government agencies. Yes, we have no problem doing that. So we passed all the 4 critical indicators. And number 5, they don't have that one anymore. I'm not even sure which one that is. Oh, that was the one where they were looking at your net position on your government-wide financial statements. They don't look at that one anymore. And then they start what they call the solvency indicators. Was the average change in assigned and unassigned fund balance over 3 years less than 25%? Or did you have enough cash on hand or enough fund balance to cover 75 days of operational expenses? And we passed this indicator. Our average change in our fund balance, we get actually over the 4 years that they're looking at, it increased almost 10%. Indicator number 7. This is just looking at your cash on hand and your current investments. Is that enough to cover your operating expenses? And they're looking at, on this one, you start losing points if you have less than, I think it's 75 days. 90 days. If you have less than 90 days of cash on hand, you start losing points. We had almost 190 days of cash on hand by that calculation. So we got all 10 points out of that one. Number 8, now they're looking at your current assets and your current liabilities. They're looking at the ratio. They want to see that you've got plenty of current assets to cover your current liabilities. Our ratio is, for every dollar of current debt, we've got $4.3 of current assets. So we're well above the ratio. We get all 10 points for that indicator. Did the school district's general fund revenue? This one just looks at basically on your general fund, where your revenue is higher than your expenses, you automatically pass and you get all 10 points. If you do have a deficit where your expenses are more than your revenues, as long as you've got the number of days of cash on hand are greater than equal to 60 days, then you still pass the indicator. For this year, we did have, for the 22 fiscal year, our revenues did exceed our expenditures, and we also had almost, like I said, almost 190 days of cash on hand. So we got all 10 points for that indicator. Number 10, did the school district average less than a 10% variance when comparing budgeted revenues for the last 3? This one they don't score this one anymore. This was where they were really tying us to, and I don't know what some districts were doing, but they were really, whatever you said your budget was, if you wound up being way off from your budget, you lost some points here, but they don't score that one anymore. Number 11, now they're looking at long-term liabilities. And they want to look and see that you've got enough, the ratio of your long-term liabilities to the total assets of the school district, it looks like it's enough to support, like you can keep making your debt payments. And then one caveat of this is, I guess if you're a fast growth district, you automatically pass this indicator. You've got to have if your student membership increases more than 7%, you automatically pass. But we don't have that kind of increase, but the ratio of our long-term liabilities to total assets is for every 50 cents of liability, I'm saying that wrong, we have twice as much in total assets as we do in long-term liabilities, so we're good there. And we don't need to worry about the second indicator because our enrollment didn't go up 7%. But we get all 10 points because our ratio is well above what it needs to be. Indicator number 12, this is where they this is looking at the debt service fund, and they compare your debt, your total debt, and what your property values are to look like that you're going to be able to collect enough debt or enough money to make your payments. And when you do the ratio, we're at 1.28, and I believe you start. That's the one where you start losing points if that number is 4 or higher, and we're well below the ratio of 4. So we get all 10 points for that one. This is indicator 13. This is the only one where we didn't get the maximum number of points. Was the school district's administrative cost ratio equal or less than the threshold ratio? And what they do is they take your size of your district, and I think the range is 3,000 students to 5,000 students. That's the range that we're in. And TA comes up with what the ratio should be, and if you're below that ratio, you get all 10 points, and then it's graduated down. And I believe we only got 8 out of 10 points on this one. I will say that the ratio, and what they're looking at is they take function 21 and 41, which is admin administration, like the superintendent office. Pretty much everybody in this building is either a 41 or a 21. And so they take all those costs, that's your admin cost, and then they compare that to all your function 11 costs, which is your instruction, that's classroom, 12 is libraries, 13 is staff development for teachers, and the other one is counseling. So they look at all your expenditures for admin, 21 and 41, and compare it to all your expenditures for 11, 12, 13, and 31. We came out with 0.1178%, that's the ratio. We barely missed it. If we had been 0.1151, we would have gotten all 10 points. We were like 0.0027, dipping down to where we lost those 2 points. But obviously and you have to double that, you have to multiply that by 1.2 times to get to the next level where you'd lose another 2 points. So we barely dipped down into that. And I would say the reason for that is in fiscal year 22, during that span, we had 3 superintendents. We still had Dr. Fernandez on the payoff agreement, then we had an interim, and then we got, at the very end of that period is when Mr. Van Metre got here. So we had a little bit more 41 than we normally would have in a regular year.
Do you have any concerns with the budget we just closed?
Obviously, there might be a few more points that happen. I'm not concerned. We have enough cash on hand. I believe all our ratios are still good, even if we have a deficit budget. And one thing, when they look at a deficit like the 5.5 million for the football field, that's considered a capital outlay. So they subtract that from the expenditures. So that doesn't count against you. If you invest in assets that have a useful life of more than 1 year, they don't penalize you that for having a deficit for that. So I'm not concerned about, we got plenty of cash on hand. Even if we have a deficit, I think we're still going to meet all the indicators. Indicator number 14, this is the new one that they decided not to rate this year. This was the one about, what was the one on this one? This was, this one was kind of a weird one. They were looking at your ratio of your students to your employees. So you want to make sure that, the number of your students matches the number of your employees. And so they used to take a 3-year average of that and see how you were doing. But they decided not to grade that one anymore, or for this year. Number 15 was the school district's ADA within the allotted range. They stopped doing this one too. This was the one where every 2 years we would tell TA, based upon our trends and how we thought things were working, we turn in what we think our estimated ADA is going to be. Well, things can happen, and you had to be within certain ranges, but they stopped grading that one. Number 16, did the comparison of PEEMS match what the audit said? And thankfully we've never had a problem with this one. The variance was it goes so far out, it's virtually zero. I always make sure that the audit has to match what we reported to PEEMS and vice versa. They should be the same. And like I said, it goes out so far, it's virtually zero variance, so we pass that one. Did the external independent, and then these are the financial competencies, and these go back to the audit. Did the auditor, in your annual audit, did they find any material weaknesses? No, so we passed that. And then the other one is, did they find any instances of material non-compliance? They did not, so we passed that one and get all 10 points on that one. 19, this is, did we post required stuff on the website? The auditor checks that, yes we did. And then this one's kind of tweaked over the years, but all we have to do is discuss property values when before we adopt the budget. And every budget, everything we talk about, I always talk about the property values. So we passed that one. So we only lost 2 points on that one, so we scored a 98 out of 100. That's still an A, that's a superior achievement rating. And then just the follow-up, the other things that are required to report on. If you look at the other handout, it just kind of goes through. And if you look, I kind of show some of the other surrounding districts, what their scores were for the last 2 years. But if you look at the statistics, for this year, the 21-22 year, where the data's coming from, 1,010 school districts, 99.21% pass. So the majority of the districts do pass. Only 8 ISDs in the whole state got an F for this period. The other thing we have to talk about is the superintendent's contract. Mr. Demichu's contract is on the website, so we're in compliance with that. And then we have to report all the payments that were made for the board members and the superintendent during this. And remember, this is the reporting period of fiscal year 22, so from September of 21 through August 31st of 22. And there's a summary page on there that just lists all the people that were here during those 12 months and how much we paid either for travel or reimbursement for travel, or, you know, I think that was the year we bought everybody a new laptop, so everybody got a new laptop expense allocated to them. So that's everything that was expensed for the board and for the superintendent. And then they just asked for, you know, any outside compensation or fees that were received by the superintendent for professional consulting. That was 0. And then we're saying there were no business transactions between the board or the superintendent and the district, and we had no material gifts or anything that were received by the board or the superintendents during that period. And that concludes all the information that we're required to present in the first report. Any questions?
Great job, Philip.
Thank you. A lot of pressure to get that done in 15 minutes.
You did pretty good.
You did well.
All right.
Public comment for the public hearing. Not the regular public comment, any comment from the public.
Yeah. Looks like everybody's shaking their head no. So that will conclude our public hearing. It is 6:02. And now we're going to move on into our regular scheduled board meeting. Again, it's still Monday, October 16th, 2023, and it is 6:03. And we will begin our public comment. The next item on the agenda is public comment, which is the time for members of the audience to address the Board of Trustees. Before we begin, I'll remind our audience members of the board's procedures for handling public comments. Each public comment speaker will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to address the board, except that non-English speakers will be allowed a maximum of 6 minutes to address the board. Please keep your comments or criticisms civil and courteous, avoid using profanity, and refrain from making personal attacks on others during your opportunity to speak. Yelling, inappropriate, uncivil, or discriminatory comments will not be permitted. Lastly, we ask that you not discuss students who are not your own child. I also caution you that your public comments should not complain about individual school employees by name or position, or other than your own child identify students. As presiding officer, I am obligated to determine whether a person addressing the board has attempted to administratively resolve any complaints or grievances about which they want to address the board that involve district officers or employees. In the event your comment constitutes a complaint or charge against an employer or officer, it may be necessary for me to interrupt and ask you to stop and direct you to proceed with the school district's formal grievance procedures or to have the item heard in executive session, depending on the nature of the complaint. Any concerns or complaints regarding individual district employees, students, or parents must be resolved via the district's grievance process, which can be found online and include policies DGBA, F&G, and GF. Do we have any?
I do not.
None? Okay. Then we are moving on to agenda item number 1, presentation for the new subdivision adjacent to Warrior Drive.
Madam President, members of the board, after having informal discussion with Mr. Pusley and Mr. Roy, I felt it would be in our best interest to hear directly from our city council representatives regarding the proposed subdivision that's not in our ISD, but it's really, really close, adjacent to Warrior Drive. So I know there's several rumors going around, so I'd like to have Mr. Pusley, I don't think Everett's here yet, is he?
Mr. Superintendent, Madam President, board members, Everett just called me. He got delayed on me, but he's on his way. If you'd like to skip to your next agenda item and then come back to us, we're willing to wait. You can do it.
At the pleasure of the
That's
board.
okay.
Is that all right with y'all? Okay.
Well,
Thank you very much for your
not the
consideration.
super long one.
Yeah, we're going into the district improvement plans.
We can do, why don't we jump to 3? That won't be, that's not gonna be super long. Okay?
Y'all okay with that?
Go progress. So,
You're on the spot.
No pressure, no pressure.
So this is actually becoming number
yes,
2. Number 1.
yes. 3 is 1 now. So, Madam President, members of the board, as you know, having gone through Lone Star governance and having just developed a very comprehensive strategic plan, the intent is to bring to the board initially baseline data, and then after that, formative progress on the goal progress monitoring measures. And our first one is probably our most important one, dealing with student performance. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to
Just
Dr. White.
add a few more words. Directly from this Curriculum and Instruction Department, Ms. Moody, our Assistant Director of Curriculum, has kind of taken the charge and is the lead administrator in charge of strategic planning currently. So far, we've made good progress so far on the readiness profile with high school, and this week we're making our way down to the middle school, where we'll be meeting to do the same type of brainstorming and thought session about putting some of those measurables in place. And so tonight is just kind of capturing a snapshot into what we've done so far and where we're going. So
Before Kenneth starts, what was the root cause of this goal is trying to develop a profile of a Tolosa Midway High School graduate, and then digging down to what do we want from a kid exiting primary, intermediate, middle school, and high school for post-secondary success. And it's been challenging, but this is really going to be terrific work.
Well, I'm done. Thank you. So goal 1 is really a 5-year goal. So by the end of 5 years, by the end of 2028, we plan on having a baseline per year in transitional years specifically of the amount of students that are what we deem as ready for that transitional year. So our process, well, the purpose of what the intent of it, Chrissy, okay, there we go. The purpose of it is so that we can send out graduates into the world that are actually ready to graduate. The immeasurable things, the intangible skills that we want our kids to leave with. We want them to be employable. We are trying to capture that we're trying to capture that in a profile. So, to ensure that they're life ready. I'm sorry. Okay, so what is our TMISD readiness profile? We met with the administrative team all together completely, and then we broke it into campuses and met with campuses. We've met with high school, middle school, and then next week or Wednesday we'll meet with intermediate, and then we'll come back together when we finish. But basically our readiness profile is divided into 3 categories. We're going to measure our academic skills, we're going to measure our technical skills, and we're going to measure our social emotional skills to say that we are ready for the next transitional year. Some of those measurable activities may include keyboarding at 2nd grade. That might be a technical skill that wouldn't necessarily translate to an academic skill, but it's a necessary skill for them to be ready to test in 3rd grade on STAR test. So that would be one of the things that would go in our technical skills under that profile. Initially, in this year and probably next, we will only measure the transitional years, 2nd to 3rd, 5th to 6th, 8th to 9th, and then the 12th year. Eventually, we will do that and break that by year. For example, a freshman may need a social emotional skill of independent learning. You know, they come from middle school, they're kind of spoon-fed, so then that freshman year transitional skill that we would focus on would be independent learning. And so that'll eventually be included in everything that we do. The other big piece of the readiness profile, I'm so sorry. The other big piece of the readiness profile is that students starting in 6th grade will build their own digital profile. So they will, of course with teacher guidance, they will essentially over the course of 6th through 12th grade build something that they can take to an employer and say, this is what I'm good at. This is what I can do. And it'll be those measurable skills. For example, our welding program, their profile would include samples of their welds, samples of, just different things that they do, because that's all I know about welding. Our dentist people would have their, different clients that they've met with, different procedures that they're able to do, and that would all be captured in what we would call something like a warrior profile or a Cherokee profile. And we would start working with our community to say, these are things that we're sending our kids to you with. So basically what Mr. Van Metre charged us with is he wanted sort of a guarantee, a warranty, so to speak, that when we sent kids out, we could guarantee that they were ready for whatever we were sending them out to do. And that's what this profile is about.
Very awesome.
Yeah, very awesome.
So we are in the beginning phases. I've talked with several school districts. Unbeknownst to any of us, well, maybe some people knew, I didn't. This is state mandated in many states, that every district has a profile of a graduate and that they measure it. And so we were able to do a lot of really constructive research in preparing to put this together. So we're not just slapping some things on paper. It's going to be an actual meaningful part of what we do, and it'll impact instructional practices. This is where we're at currently. We started in July with the strategic planning process, even before that actually, and we're now meeting with campuses. November to January is going to be like the key times, because we're going to actually have some of the documents together that we're planning on building or that we're working to build. And November to January will be when we really involve teachers and students. We'll have a student collaborative group that'll, this is not something that we need you to teach us, or this is something I really don't know how to do. Some of those skills would be something like financial literacy, and you'll see those in just a minute. January to April is where we're going to work to kind of hopefully implement some of those in maybe some pilot classrooms, let teachers kind of test it out. This is way too much for us to collect. This is way too much for counselors, that kind of thing. April to May, we will hopefully determine a baseline of where we're at. So what if we measured today, where would we be with these kids in the transitional years? What percentage would be on track? And then May to July, we'll refine that based on feedback and hopefully implement fully in the transitional years only in the following school year. this is where we're at so far. This is a sample of what the high school campus has come up with. We've since developed a middle school one, but it wasn't in your board book, so I didn't include it. But you guys probably can't see it from there, but a lot of academic skills that we know kids are going to be required to do, TSI, SAT, ACT. But some of the things that, we wouldn't always think of is, we want you to have a written out plan, future plan, whether that be military, career, whatever it is. We're going to work with our teachers and our counselors to develop that plan and then develop SMART goals to make it to that plan. That's indicated in the social, emotional, and technical. And then the high school chose to break theirs by proficient, accomplished, and exemplary. So there'll be degrees to which you could graduate with in terms of, am I proficient for being ready for my future? That would include maybe you've done some service learning, you've done some community service. That would maybe 10 hours. An accomplished kid would maybe have 20 hours. An exemplary kid would maybe have 30 hours, or would maybe lead the FFA as a captain, or I don't know what they call them in FFA. Help me out, Gabe. The officer. There we go. President. Those types of things. So that would put you into the exemplary category, and we've defined what some of those things are. This is very rough. We're currently researching a digital platform for us to house this, so that there is not a single piece of paper moving with a child, that we have a digital way to track that. And then what are our next steps? Our next steps are to collaborate with high school students and teachers, develop the measurement documents. We know what we want now. We know what we want kids to be able to graduate with. We know what we want middle schoolers to leave with. We're working on what we want intermediate kids to leave intermediate with. So we're going to start developing those documents.
Kenna, let me stop you for a second. Have we entertained getting the business community involved in, for example, Mr. Roy, he's in the finance banking industry. Wouldn't it behoove us to get him and others in that industry, oil and gas, petrochemical, to say, we want to hire a TM kid with this type of industry certification and these other skills? Have we thought of that?
We've thought of it. We're not quite there yet. The districts that we worked with, and one of them is in Minnesota. I know everybody that's been in meetings with us knows that how I feel about Byron ISD. We actually had a conference call with them. We Zoomed with them. They kind of went over some of the things that they do. That was one of the first things that they mentioned. Most seniors have an internship or an externship that is directly correlated to their, they don't call them pathways, but it would essentially be our pathways. We are very good at that right now in CTE. We send our dental kids to a dental hygienist office, a dental office. Welders go out and weld. Our mechanics go out and do mechanic-y things. But our interdisciplinary kids, we haven't developed that yet for them, our multidisciplinary kids. So that is definitely something that we have been advised through Byron ISD and other places to investigate. We certainly will, but we're still in the getting our kind of ducks in a row, and what can we physically do as a district? Because a lot of the things that we want to do may not be physically possible for us in terms of how we're going to measure it, who's going to track it, what are some things that would be equitable for every child, not just certain children. And so we're still in that planning phase, but certainly, hopefully, the January to April category, we could involve some business owners and community members.
And have we got SPED involved in this for our kids with disabilities?
Not yet. I know that they know of the profile, but at this point, we've met with administrative teams from high school, middle school, and we're scheduled to meet with intermediate tomorrow, Wednesday. And then after we do that, we'll bring in additional stakeholders. It's kind of like a pulse check. What can we do? What do we want? And then.
And I know, in fairness to you guys, the strategic plan's only been approved for a month.
Right. Yes, sir. Yes. That's all for strategic plan unless you have, I mean, we've kind of played with names. Mr. Alvarado really wants a cool acronym for it. We haven't been able to come up with anything yet. So right now it's our GRP, our graduate readiness plan or profile. And then at the lower levels, it'll be a student readiness profile, so an SRP. But if you have any suggestions on how you can make that cute, we would love to hear it. We ran out of ideas.
Well, to be consistent with their training, they were taught goal progress monitoring,
Okay?
and this is a goal.
That's not cool. I'm sorry.
No, I totally agree with
We
that.
tried GRT, great, but there was no P in that, so we needed a P. But if you have any suggestions, certainly we're ready to hear them.
Y'all are looking to implement that with which current grade level?
Only the transitional years right now.
Okay.
Now, at the end of this year in July to, our summer, July to July, we are looking to do some breakdowns as to what an 11th grader would need to be ready for that 12th grade, what an 8th grader would need to start that digital profile. But we still are wanting to really hone in on those transitional years. And then essentially it would then become kind of a campus-driven initiative after we have those transitional things set, where a primary staff could say, okay, if we need second graders to be technology ready, then as first graders, we're gonna do this with them. And then we'll capture that in paper somehow. The last thing we want is for teachers to say, this is meaningless and this is a waste of time. It's gotta be something that's a true living, breathing thing. One of the things that we discussed at the middle school is the need for social emotional support and stability. So we've talked about how we can change our master schedule to implement some of these things that we need in the social emotional category, particularly like conflict resolution, mental fortitude, those types of attributes. I don't think we use those words, but something similar to that. But that's where we're.
Well, what'll be interesting to track is if 2 is still a transitional year, which I hope it isn't, but if it is, to look at the number of students that we've determined to be ready for 3rd grade, and then how they do on that first year of state assessment.
Right. And that was honestly, I think, the big push when we started this conversation. It all started with the kids not being able to keyboard. You know, if they need this to be able to do this, that, you know, their comprehension was inhibited by their inability to type. They knew how to do things, but they couldn't get it down. Well, that's our fault. That's got to be a goal of ours. So it is, and they have been knocking it out
Where
of
is
the
it in
park.
the TEKS?
It's in the technology TEKS.
Where's it
At second
start?
grade. Second grade, they're supposed to be proficient.
Okay.
So, and they are from kindergarten to, well, really, even pre-K is working in their technology lab.
Well, I know they can do it because they're all proficient on their phones.
Swiping.
Exactly.
Any other questions?
So looking at the high school sample one you provided, a lot of them had said like counselor in order to check them off. Is that like current work that's on the counselor's plate, or is any of it additional
Some of it is things
responsibilities?
that we've already done that we're just gonna capture. Like they meet with their counselors for their PGPs. They meet with their counselors already for, well, you could probably speak, registration stuff, academic
Academic advising,
advising.
registration, all that's already been
And
taken care
then
of.
like some of the things for the technical skills, the CPR, AED, all of that is already stuff that they do. We just need to capture that they do it. We need to capture that it's something that they're already proficient, and just tracking that is the next step. We were very worried about the amount of things that are gonna be tracked, which is why we're really wanting to research very significantly a platform for it. Because if it's not an easy platform, it's gonna be a paper in a folder that stays in somebody's office that comes out once a year. But essentially, and you know, Byron echoed this the other day, you can ask any one of our graduates and they can tell you what proficiency they need help in. that would be our end game. Our kids would be able to say, I've got to have interview skills. I've got an interview next week, or, you know, my financial literacy isn't what it needs to be because I can't hold my job and be at school on time. One of the things that the middle school brought up that we had not thought of in the high school profile was tracking attendance. Attendance being an accountability factor on the profile of a graduate. That speaks to their responsibility. It speaks to their ability to be on time. You know, those are things that are skills that they need to start being aware of. And until they are embedded in tracking it themselves, you know, they're not really owning that. Now, middle school, it's a little bit more of a challenge because typically that's parent related, but we've discussed how we could manage that.
I was gonna say, I loved adding the financial literacy into the curriculum. Amazing, and then I was gonna add kind of similar to VM, I think it's a great opportunity, to partner with different credit unions to teach and house that course. So like, I know like Junior Achievement right now, through them, they have a partnership from Navy Rally Credit Union and like Ray High School, and they teach all the seniors financial literacy. So that would be a cool, opportunity. On the social emotional health, I guess the high school one, it was more extracurricular based, but I liked everything you were putting down in terms of actual conflict resolution and those things. And I know when I was on the Shack, we did discuss some different social emotional health
Yeah, you kind of,
curriculum that
yeah,
could
you left us right as we were getting into the nitty gritty of all that. So that's coming second semester.
Okay,
So it's kind
awesome.
of
Well, you
dovetailing
should-
nnecely into the plans.
You should see on the profile, and it's like a little blip, but really it's like a bigger piece. We already currently work with Suite 360, which is a social emotional platform. They have a beginning, middle, and end assessment, and then you progress monitor through that assessment. Essentially what we would do is we would say, we want seniors to have, it's not coming to me, but we would assign all seniors that in Suite 360, and then we could very easily monitor who had done those assignments, those lessons, those real world questions and answers and discussions. And we could say, okay, those that haven't, we really need to pull in and make sure that that they know what we're trying to get with them. For middle schoolers, without a doubt, it's conflict resolution and independent thinking, peer pressure mitigation, that type of thing. So we know without a doubt that's going on middle school profile. And that it's not that we don't think of those things, but when it's on paper in black and white and we're measuring it, it then becomes a focus. And it becomes what we all talk about, what we all think, what we're all discussing. And our counselors do a great job meeting with kids sort of on a crisis basis, but this would help us get out ahead of crisis. This would help us mitigate some of those crises, which would hopefully flip how we spend our time.
And then the last question I had was just, so I saw the timeline of getting it to be measurable. When's the next board update on Measure 1?
I would say, what is it? I would say
Or is
early
it along
spring.
with any of this?
Early
Okay.
spring. We're going to do Progress Monitor 3 next, which is reduction of response to intervention in MSST. Is that the initials?
TSS.
TSS. I can never get CPE, the free lunch, or the yes. I can never get those initials right. But early spring. You're gonna have one of these every month.
I have a question. Given all the criteria that needs to be measured, and I'm talking about the for the high school, are they meeting the 80-20?
That's another key factor of this. You could probably speak more to the 80-20, but
And if you'd like, I can speak a little bit to that too.
So the short answer is yes, we're meeting 80-20. However, you'll see that as this gets developed, it now leads to a better conversation for the teachers to have with the students as far as this is what we really should be targeting and looking for. So we are discussing future college options. ACT matters, SAT matters, TSI matters. They're able to have those conversations and those hopefully the student at this point, by the time we get there, will know that they have got to meet these requirements. You know, when we talk about, you know, extracurriculars, it's not just, are you in football? It's, well, let's talk about what you're doing in football. What leadership skills are you learning? What are all the measurables that we can't measure? It's leading them more down a path of conversation as opposed to just, how's it going? We
Dave,
really
can
want-
you explain to some board members that may not be familiar with 80/20?
So 80/20 means that the counselors, House Bill 3 counselors' time must be allocated. We're spending 80% of their time in direct contact with students and 20% doing paperwork and things of that nature. So it is meeting with, like, they spent 100% of their time this week doing registration with kids. It was one-on-one, you know, doing that sort of stuff, making sure their PGPs are done. So we're very confident that this document, it should be more student-led and students responsible for doing, you know, their part. The counselors will there be just to advise and talk to them about how they're doing on fulfilling their plan. And if they're not doing so well, then let's have a conversation about how we can get better.
So they haven't heard this yet, Janie, so don't tell anybody. But the next step that we're going to go into is student-led parent conferences, where instead of the teacher leads the conference with the parent, the student leads it.
That helps on so many different levels for
yes.
life skills.
Thank you.
I've been looking 10 minutes to see if I should ask this or not, but this is about what kids need when they get out. Where do we lose the kids being able to, because they can't do a signature. And I can attest to that because my kid, he's 18 years old, and he was so proud today. He told me, Dad, I need you to take me to the bank to redo my signature card because I learned cursive. I've been working on it for the past month. Because when we went to open his account, he couldn't, no signature. I mean, you know, where did we lose that, or do we still teach cursive, or?
Cursive used to be a third grade TEKS. It was removed from the TEKS, and so everybody focused making sure they're ready. So if I can spend time making sure they're ready academically, and I don't have to spend time practicing cursive, then that's what we're going to focus on. This profile, if we were to say cursive is important, then we could add that as a technical skill to our profile. And that would become something that we
Well, having the
focus on.
signature is pretty important.
I will tell you, my son is MATTUX and he connects the bottoms. That's how he does his signature. So I get it. I know exactly what you're talking about. But that would just be something that would come through our work as the teams that we develop and get to the room.
Any other questions? Discussion? Great job.
Well done, Kim.
Well, everybody has been pitching in on this, so I just got nominated to present. Are we ready?
I think we're going to go back to agenda item number 2, which is a presentation on the new subdivision adjacent to the Warrior Drive.
So again, Madam President, members of the board, we're honored to have our 2 representatives on the great city of Corpus Christi with us tonight. There's been a fair amount of discussion on a proposed large housing development that we could walk right across the street from Warrior Stadium and go into. So I invited them and they came. Thank you. It's up to you. It's your platform now, Mr. Puzzler, Mr. Roy.
Good evening, Mr. Superintendent, Madam President, board members. I'm Mike Pusley, your at-large city council representative. This is Councilman Roy, your district council representative, and he represents this district along with an area that starts on about North Beach, covers part of downtown Corpus Christi, Toloso Midway, and Calallen. And I cover the whole city. But as a longtime resident of Toloso Midway and a former school board member, when I heard about this development, I was concerned about a number of things. So I contacted the superintendent and your board president and said, we probably need to come bring you up to date on what's going to happen. And although this development is not in your school district, it's across the street from your football stadium and a lot of the other developments that you have planned for the future. And one of the things I was concerned about immediately was in talking with the developer, who is Moses Musagasi. And Moses is a great guy. He's one of the premier developers here in Corpus Christi and has done lots of developments throughout the city and the county, outside the city limits as well. This is a development where there will be somewhere between the neighborhood of 700 and 800 homes built there. And then a retail strip is planned along Warrior Boulevard. And I don't know if you guys can bring up Google Earth, but if you want to, we can look at it that way. But so my immediate concern was traffic issues. I know how traffic is around schools. I know we've got traffic issues down at Rand Morgan Road already. Moses is building a subdivision adjacent to Rand Morgan. Unfortunately, Rand Morgan is a state road, and we have, Councilman Roy and I and the city manager have encouraged TxDOT to try to get on top of this before the traffic issues on Rand Morgan get any worse.
And that is in our ISD, that development.
Yes, it is. It is in your ISD. So anyway, we both met with Moses. We came out here and rode around with him, drove around the property. He had an idea about how he wanted to do streets. The city staff had an idea about how they wanted to do streets. And so they are still working on that issue. But we made it clear, I think, to the developer that whatever happens has to be done in such a way as that it doesn't impact your school district with respect to traffic. And the city is going to have to work together with the developer to come up with the proper traffic flows. And I think what their primary goal is going to be is to get the traffic out of this subdivision headed back toward Violet Road, which would make the most sense. Originally, the developer thought that he was going to take the traffic out through one of these shorter streets and go down through the neighborhood there that's been existing for a long time, and we told him that just wasn't going to work. That would put too much traffic in an existing neighborhood on a street that was never built for that kind of traffic. So there's been some spirited discussions in council meetings about this issue between staff and the developer, but I feel confident that they're going to work out the issues with respect to the streets. But we just wanted to come forward, make you aware that we are staying on top of this issue. The development, according to the developer, he will start building homes probably down in this area first. He has a retail component designed for this area here along Warrior, so maybe a small strip center and some other things. As you well know, Warrior Boulevard is basically half of a street, so that's something that's going to have to be worked out as well. That street will have to be widened and curbed and guttered and, you know, everything that goes with that. But we just wanted to make sure that you were aware of what was going on and know that we are looking out for not only the interest of the developer, but also the interest of this school district and how it would impact the traffic, and to answer any questions you might have. And I'll shut up and let Councilman Roy.
Can I ask you something first, Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Pusley? Is this a done deal? They've already bought the
Yes, ma'am.
land?
He's bought the land, and he's already in the process of working out the plans and development. And, yeah, it's a done deal. And he said it was a very difficult, I guess would be the word, process of acquiring that property. The people that own it own a lot of land around here. They don't live here, but he managed to get it bought, and I would imagine there'll end up being somewhere, as he said, between 700 and 800 homes on that piece of
I
property.
can't believe they can fit that many homes right there.
I'm sorry, Mr. Roy. I have a question for you,
Sure.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
You've been here a long time in the TM.
Yes, sir.
My question to you, and I talked to Mr. Van Matre about this, because we have a better taxing structure than Calallen does, why wouldn't we as Toloso Midway be able to annex with y'all's help? The developer would love it because he could sell that to his clients. Hey, you get a $40,000 exemption versus a $20,000 exemption.
Absolutely.
I mean, are you guys willing to go out and bat for us as far as the district to annex this? Because I don't think Calallen ISD would just love that, but we will be able to throw a rock across the street and hit these houses.
No doubt about that. Unfortunately, state law prevents the city from getting into that business. That's strictly school district law, and that's governed completely different. Our home rule authority doesn't allow us to do that. I mentioned to the superintendent that he might want to visit with Calallen superintendent and see, if they really wanted this in their district. Years ago, when I was sitting in your chair, we had a joint meeting with Calallen Independent School District right here in our cafeteria at the high school, and talked to them about moving the Calallen Toloso District to Violet Road. And it was not a popular discussion. Calallen had no interest in doing that, and many of the people who lived in that area that bordered between Toloso and Violet Road were not interested in that discussion either, so it went nowhere. But I think it's well worth a phone call to the Calallen superintendent to say, hey, now if the school district wants to give up property, you can do that. And Calallen could choose to do that if they wanted to.
Thank you. Appreciate you giving us the time to come out and talk about this. One of the things that I look at in the district, whether it be the Calallen ISD or the Toloso Midway ISD, is that with these developments right now, and we are probably seeing more development in our area than we've seen in years. But there's a direct correlation, as you know, in terms of your physical assets that you have being able to accommodate these developments. And so it's a problem across the board. When I first heard about this development, it's a very large development in terms of the scope of things that we see, and even the terms of the scope that I see as a commercial banker. This is a very large development by any means. Whether this was on the south side, whether this was out in London, when you're looking at the potential for 800 to 900 homes, there's, in this period, I want to make sure everybody understands that this time frame that we're working on for this developer to max out this property is probably somewhere between 15 to 18 years. This isn't going to happen where he'll sell these 700 to 900 homes overnight. He'll probably have other developers involved that will purchase lots, or contractors that will purchase lots and they'll sell lots. And it could be an array of different homes, anywhere from price points that are average to very expensive homes. One of the things that I first looked at was the master plan. I wanted to understand right now, based on the area, what is the future that we're doing with the roads that are out there right now. So Haven is already in the master plan to be widened, and that's a good thing. So if I understand, when I looked at the master plan, it's basically would be 2 lanes with a turning lane in the middle. But is that going to be sufficient? There's got to be traffic studies that have to be done. Those are all the things that Mike and myself want to make sure that we're on top of, and that we have this open dialogue. The other thing is that if you look at the commercial business that he's talking about and multifamily homes that are closest to your baseball field and your football field, that's going to affect the area. So we're going to definitely have to make sure that the streets are widened. It's something that we want to make sure that we stay on top of because it can get out of control pretty easy. A lot of times what happens is, there's infrastructure that has to be put in place there. We have to work with EMS to make sure that he's talking about developing a series of collectors within the subdivision. We want to see a site plan, and that's something that Council Member Pusley and I are adamant on, is that we want to see your site plan. Because a lot of times what developers will do is they'll get the project rolling to the point where they think it's a point of no return. And then they'll give you a site plan that may not be cohesive for everybody in the community. So those are things that we're watching. And this is going to be a long period of time. So I know that if in the future, if Mike is over on the county, I feel comfortable that we plan on continuing to work together on this, because this not only affects the city, but it does affect the county also. So, and I do believe that she should have some open dialogue with the Calallen ISD, because I look at their assets right now, and I just keep thinking, as I total up all the different subdivisions, the subdivision off of 77, the one that's going into Hearn, the one that we just talked about, the other Moses Mastagashi subdivision, and I look at this new proposed subdivision, I'm thinking, my goodness, we've got to build some new schools or something, you know? Because I've talked to...
Your bond election is going to be very important.
Yeah, I've talked to the Calallen ISD, and I know in terms of where they're at and their assets right now, and they're continuing to build out there. As a matter of fact, on 624, I saw where they're breaking ground on the left-hand side as you go out, and it looks like that's going to be another subdivision. So we just want you to know that we're here. It's a very important topic for us. I also want to commend you, all of you, and the teachers and everybody. We went to the Tolosa Midway State of the District, and I was blown away. You guys are doing so many great things that I would hate for something like this to distract you as you guys continue to get out there and do greatness for the community and the children. Yeah. So I will tell you that if there's anything that this board needs or has questions about, we will make sure that we're available to come out and talk about it. As you go through and maybe have conversation with the Calallen ISD, if there's anything that we can do to help, I can't, like Mike said, we have to be careful, but if there's anything that we can do from a city perspective to help people understand the pros and cons, then we can do that. So,
You know, one of the programs that was started years ago, you know, the city used to require every developer, when they developed more than a certain number of acres, they had to put a park in their subdivision. Well, that sounded great when they started, and then one day the city of Corpus Christi woke up and went, wow, we've got a bunch of parks and we have to take care of all of them. So, mowing and, you know, all of the things that go in with, and keeping playground equipment up to date. So they actually started in the process of selling off parks. Those of us who grew up out here remember the Jackson Woods Park that basically went out of favor, and the city didn't want it, and ended up houses being built there. So what they did was went back and revamped that program. They said, okay, developers, you can pay into a fund, and the city will put that money into existing parks to help develop parks that are already here. And the builders said, okay, we agree with that, except we want that money spent in parks closest to our development. And so one of the great things about this development is, as you know, this park along here is primarily a county park, but the city of Corpus Christi owns part of all of this 50-50 with the county. So we'll be able to get some of that money that the builder will appropriate for parks will go directly into that park to help improve it. And if I go back to the county, if I'm fortunate enough to do that, I'm going to make absolutely certain that that happens. But, so from that point, we're very excited. But I think, you know, bottom line, this is exciting for our community. It's going to bring in new homes and new availabilities for the community. But we also want to make sure that it's done correctly so that it doesn't have a negative impact on your high school or future plans that you may have for any development along Haven Road. So anyway, we won't take up any more of your time, but we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I just have one. So Haven Road will be 5 lanes from McKenzie to Violet?
I believe it's that, yes.
Yes.
That's the
future plan.
That's the future plan.
Okay.
When I looked at the master plan, it almost indicated, it looked to me, and I don't know if you looked at the master plan, that it was 6 lanes, but I really think what it is 2, and then you have your turning lanes and your median.
There's
So,
not a lot of room down Haven through that neighborhood.
you know, especially when you get past, you're right,
Yeah.
what is essentially
It's
the.
very tight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, they may have to acquire some additional property, or, you know, lots of things can happen in that respect. But,
So, I just kind of want to, because it's easy to forget, these things are happening so fast, it's easy to forget. You know, we were here about 6 months ago talking about Sessions Road, and that multifamily unit that's going to go out there in Sessions Road that could also have some single-family residents at the end, and that's just another subdivision.
What's the status of that project?
You know, it's interesting, they haven't started. He's acquired the land, and I thought for sure that the way that they were chopping at the bit, that they would start, because the first thing they have to do is do the road improvements first. But Mike and I were talking about this, is that when you take a look at that bridge and where it's washed out, I kept telling the developer, I said, that's gonna cost some money there. And I think at the end of the day, when they're looking at the cost of that bridge and building and being able to accommodate the length that needs, the width that it needs to be, that I think that's kind of slowed the project down.
that property has some infrastructure challenges. There's a reason why that property has been vacant a long time. And the infrastructure challenges there are gonna be expensive to get around. But the developer, when we met with him, seemed very willing to attack it, so.
We were clear, we walked it with them and said, this is gonna,
They're gonna have to fix that drainage bridge down there because it won't support the traffic that he's planning on putting in there,
so,
And this is.
Mike, is Moses doing that developing as well?
no,
No, different guy altogether.
yeah. That's NPR, I think, is the name of that company, but it's a gentleman by the name of Victor,
Yeah, we've got it written down at the office, but
so,
there's a lot of developers.
Victor Nazari, I think, maybe.
Off Sessions Road, that's Cal Allen, isn't it?
Yeah, well, one side is Peloso, the other side is Cal Allen. It literally is the boundary line,
Yeah.
yeah.
But once again, he's building on the Calallen site, but it's gonna affect all the.
Yes.
It'll affect Peloso.
TM
I was watching buses, I was in that neighborhood the other day, and I was watching, it was early in the morning, and I was watching the buses go through there. And it's kind of tricky.
Yeah, very narrow.
Safety of kids. Well, we can't thank you enough for what y'all do for our county, for our city, and what you're doing for our districts also. So we greatly appreciate the update on all of this.
You're very welcome. And we're glad to come up anytime you have a question about anything that the city's doing, whether it's good or bad. We stand here to represent you. That's our job, and we take great pride in doing that, and great pride personally for me in this school district. So thank you for all that you all do. My daughter's a teacher, and I understand exactly what all of you go through on a daily basis. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank y'all.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go home and try to help the Cowboys win. I'll do my best.
Good luck. Yeah.
Depends on what day it is. We'll see.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 3 is to discuss and consider approval of district improvement plan and campus improvement plans.
Madam President, members of the board, there's going to be a better way of doing this in the future. And Dr. White and I spent a little bit of time discussing the possibility of presenting similar to how we do policy, where we would have
I 100% agree.
Yes.
where we would have the.
264
Yes, we would
pages.
have it's really malpractice on our part to bring you a 300-plus page document that's a lot of time's been spent on. So what we're going to do in the future is we're going to have the CIP and DIP uploaded for you to have a month plus to look at.
You know, it took me 2 days to read
Yes.
this.
And then we're
It
going to.
is very good, though.
And then we're gonna do a executive summary, and then let the principals talk a little bit about what they're proud about, and then let you offer any feedback to us, and then we'll move on down the road.
Good idea.
Okay?
All right.
And on that note, I'm extremely excited about the new way we will do this. And I fully agree on the executive summary, since that I think will really capture the essence of the 300-plus pages that we're referring to, which by BQ Legal, we're required to bring to you for your approval. And so that's kind of what we're doing tonight. And to kind of, prior to the executive summary, which we will move to, kind of continue on with the way we've done it in the past, which is presenting the slides with the campus performance objectives, since that ultimately is what you are approving tonight, are the objectives that you will also find within each of the plans that are contained in the board book. And so from the district standpoint, my slide is essentially capturing the needs of the district, which will then tie back into each of the campus plans, and then they can speak directly to their specific objectives. But essentially from this slide, the focus for the district primarily has been on teaching and learning. And essentially the big question that's driven teaching is, what are we teaching? And I think so far what should kind of start coming to mind would be HQIM, the high quality instructional materials. And then so if we're talking about what are we teaching, therefore, how are we teaching it, which is the second component. How are we implementing HQIM in the classrooms? One thing that we are focusing currently on and will really kind of start kicking into high gear for the spring semester will be T-tests and restructuring and recalibrating how we are evaluating teachers in the classroom. And so a lot of that is being driven by teacher incentive allotment and the need for us this year in terms of year 2 for teacher incentive allotment. This is our data capture year. And so we're really doubling up on improving how we are delivering that instruction by making sure we're moving through our application in year 2 to capture the appropriate data to qualify for the teacher incentive allotment. Also at the same time, tying that all back into making sure HQIM is delivered at a high level while ensuring that our teachers are receiving the proper coaching and support in order to deliver that high quality instruction. And so on that note, primary.
So in following with Dr. White's vision or the plan for the district, we also have so many needs across our campus, but I'm going to focus in each column on one or two that I really want to talk about. In the teaching column, one of the big needs that we have seen is the rigor, especially when it comes to instruction for reading and math. So I'll talk about the strategy that we're using to focus on that. In learning, we want to also focus on special programs. Whether it be special education, we're right now kind of going through restructuring of how our students are getting more gen ed time in the classrooms, and how are we supporting our teachers in that. Focusing on GT, focusing on our dual language programs. So all of those in the learning column. Social emotional, on our campus, we continue to see our students struggle with things that they've never had to struggle with, okay? So we are having to increase at the lower levels. When you have TEKs and kinder that tell the teachers that you have to teach them how to say thank you and use manners, that is a TEK in kindergarten. That's what parents used to do back, and now it's kind of been becoming the school's responsibility. So we're doing that campus-wide, so we're all talking the same language. Parent engagement, this has been something that has just been needed, and we need to do better in involving our parents, because it's not just a TM primary or middle school or intermediate, it's us working together so our students can be successful. And then in the health and safety, it's going to be classroom management. The behaviors that we're seeing at students so young have increased tremendously. So we are having to put things in place so that way we are doing that. So these are just the biggest needs on our campus from each column. Of course, we're addressing all of those in one way or another. And here are the strategies. So when I talk about the rigor for math and reading, that's going to come through Eureka. And this year we also changed our phonics program. So we are using really great reading for phonics. So it's a new program and the teachers love it. It's very systematic in teaching our kids phonics. So we have that for reading. We have not moved to Amplify because since we are self-contained, our teachers teach
all subjects. So having them learn a new math curriculum, a new phonics curriculum, a new reading curriculum, that would just be too overwhelming for our teachers. The next one in the learning, it's going to be enrichment and intervention opportunities for our students. We continue to find a way to not only intervene for our students, but also provide those supports immediately when they're needed. We're using our win time, you've heard that for years, but really focusing on win time. I just met with my site-based team and we're asking, what are we doing during win and how are we making that time most effective for our students, because it is what they need. Social and emotional. If you go to my school, down any hallway, you will see PACS, the Good Behavior Game. That is a grant that we received from, I think it was Region 14. The whole state of Texas could have applied for this. We are the largest elementary school in the state that has actually taken off and really been successful. Our kids know what PACS means. You know, it talks about just the whole well-being of a child. So that's something that was free to us, and we've taken it. This is our 3rd year using PACS. We have the PACS Way. So we have the PACS Way for the cafeteria. What do we do in the hallways? So it's very, we're all talking the same language, and that's really helped us in that. In addition to that, we purchased just for primary, it's called Core Essentials. And that's just, it's a character education plus social emotional program in one. So every month we target a specific value or trait. We started off with creativity in August. Last month, let me see, it was a creativity crab. And then last month we had friendship. We talked about friendship, what it means to be friends. And then this month it's talking about integrity. What is it to be a student with integrity? So everyone across the campus, every month you'll go into our hallways, you'll see our integrity posters. There's an animal that goes with it and talks about, you know, what that animal has. This month's the elk, and we can talk about the color grage. And so we do a lot of things when it comes to social and emotional. Parent engagement, continuing with our parent meetings. Last year, since it was the first year with our parent liaison, we're kind of late to start our parent meetings, and we started in the spring. This year we've already had probably about 6 to 8 parent meetings. We have them about every other week. Sometimes there's one every week. Like tomorrow we have a bullying. What is bullying? So we're going to talk about, because parents have questions. They come to us and in first grade or in kinder saying, my child's being bullied. Okay, first let's talk about what is bullying, and then how do you report it? So we're going to have that parent meeting tomorrow. As things come up, we target that to our needs. And last, in the health and safety, it's that Little Warrior Academy. Like I said, our behaviors are something that we've noticed. Little Warrior Academy is one of our amazing paraprofessionals who works with students on social skills. When I blow my top, how does that look? I can't throw a tantrum and throw myself on the floor and roll around and scream and kick and yell. How do we appropriately ask for help? So those are social skills, and students get that right now. We've had it where we give them about 30 minutes for 4 days. Then next 6 weeks, we're going to do 3 days, 30 minutes, and hopefully to get them back into. But you would be surprised the amount of students that we are seeing with those behaviors and their tantrums. Questions?
Kicked off Red Ribbon today, so country or country club, I went with country. Hence the cow and the chicken earrings, but we have a lot of fun this week. It's a time where we get to kind of be out there with the kids and have a little fun. I'm going to kind of do the same thing. You'll see that a lot of these have carried over from the last year because we're continuing to grow and we are continuing to work on a lot of our needs and the strategies that we're doing to address those needs. So I'm going to say in my 5 minutes, I'm going to just quickly hit a couple of our really identified prioritized needs that you call them. So in teaching, it's bringing in those high quality instructional materials and programs for our math and our reading. We are a testing campus and bringing in our 3rd grade. A lot of them, we're having to bring up that rigor pretty quickly because we've got a lot of work to do with them to prepare them for the spring and STAR. and I'll address the strategies that go with that in the next slide. In our learning, it's continuing, it's a little bit of all of them. They all kind of overlap and layer with each other, but it's focusing on that growth and improvement with our kiddos. In social emotional, it's that whole child development. Like Ms. Lavila talked about, our kids are coming up and we're doing a lot of parenting at our age still. We're working with our parents, we are working with our kiddos, and it's just building that whole child. A lot of them, they are still working on how to be a friend, how to say things in a kind way. I know it's okay to be honest, but sometimes we're a little cruel when we say it. So we have to teach them. They don't know it. They don't know unless we model and teach them that. So our counselors, through their guidance lesson, the classrooms, they go to guidance, but we push those out as well during morning message. So morning message is part of our morning announcements. It's paired together. So that way the message is school-wide. So our teachers are talking the same language, our kiddos do, and we reinforce that. We're talking about ownership, taking pride in our campus. We recently just started the Squeaky Clean Award. If you've seen our beautiful trophy, it's this gaudy gold collection that's hot glued together. It's a plunger and a scrub brush, but they want to earn that. And reality is we are a little shorthanded with custodial staff. But what's not to say we can't take pride in our school? You know, you make a mess, you clean it up. You make sure that your home is tidy, that's your home during the day. So the Squeaky Clean Award just went to the new classroom for the week. They have to take pride, and it's not just being kind to others, it's being a good person. That's also tied into our book machine. It's not on your grades, it's not on attendance, it's on being a good human, a good person. So we're really focusing on that. With our parent engagement, our parent liaison as well, we call it our intermediate Title I parent series. Our first couple of meetings, we brought in a couple and I told her, be patient. Because like they say, what's that movie? Like, if you build it, they will come. So if you, what is it, Field of Dreams? Mm-hmm. So I said, if you know, once the word starts getting out. So those first couple of meetings, we sat down and it was just a table with a few of us, but what do you want to learn about? What do you? So we had, we tried to space them out at different times to be able to catch all our parents. The other night, we had a social worker come in, but the time before that, they wanted to understand MAP. And so our instructional facilitators sat down and explained what MAP was and how to be able to communicate with the teacher to be able to help their child. So a lot of times you think they're not going to want to know about MAP data. Yes, they do. They want to know how to help their kiddos. So basically with that. So, and then health and safety, it's always on our plate. You know, we're always constantly on the watch. But it's a lot of with the proactive planning and then how we address that. I think I kind of triggered over into some of the strategies, but that's okay. So the HQIM and the teaching, we are paired with Texas Lesson Studies. They come out every Wednesday. They spend the entire day with us. So what we found was, at first we started after school on Wednesdays, but you have these whole groups. So now they come and spend the entire day with us. And they meet with teachers in small individual planning. So you might have 4 to 5 teachers max. So they're able to address their specific needs. And they are working with the HQIM in pushing and implementing the Eureka and the Amplify for reading. We're seeing a big difference at first. It was a little rough, I'm not gonna lie, because it is very rigorous, it's challenging. But our teachers have come through it and they are realizing that, you know what, we're bringing those kids having a lot bigger thinking. They are asking higher order questioning, the kids are interacting with each other, and in the end, I mean, we're pushing through, we're being resilient, and we're gonna see great things. In the learning, it's as well the Amplify and Eureka, and I mentioned on the social emotional about our morning message, and as far as staff, we just started a Ranger of the Week. To really motivate our teachers in using our new curriculum, we choose a Ranger of the Week every week in different areas, and they put on that Ranger hat, we take their picture, and it's a fun thing to help recognize the staff. The parent meetings I just talked about, and the last thing with the safety, the proactive planning, you know, we really try to maintain a safe campus. So we have to be strategic in a lot of things. I have staff that come in a little earlier. They man doors because once school starts, you're in the building, it's one door out, one door in. Your kiddos, they're our most precious, thing to us, and we have to make sure we keep them safe. I think I addressed everything on there. Are there any questions?
I was wondering if you could talk more about the social media, digital, it was on the previous slide.
Can you click back to the other slide?
Digital citizenship and social
Yes.
media awareness.
Okay, that is part of just being, they have to understand, like our kids, they are exposed to everything. They are exposed to everything, and a lot of it, I don't think that they are emotionally mature enough to handle. So we have to be able to monitor that. One of the things that we do have is NetRef, and if you know what NetRef is, so the teacher, she can actually see everything that the student is on and monitor it. Because although we want to put our trust in them, sometimes they will kind of stray on a little something, but it's making them understand that also, it's not just that, incorporating it into our guidance lessons as well. Because what you put out there, that's your little footprint. You have to be kind when you're out there, you have to be aware, because there's a lot of ugly out there. And so we have to be good citizens. So it's not just managing that, it's understanding the power of social media, because it is powerful. And what you put out there, sometimes you can't take it back. So it's making them aware of what they do put out there, but also what they're accessing it. Is it appropriate? Is it not? What's appropriate for school? Is it instructional? So it's a little bit of everything. But it's creating, again, coming down to creating good people.
I have a question. Can you just elaborate on what is MTSS? What is that?
MTSS, that is, it used to be RTI.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's evolved to MTSS. So you want me to explain more, or you got it?
I got it. I know.
Okay.
I don't know if everybody
Okay.
else does, but
Yes.
I got it.
Well, isn't there a difference? It's the whole child now?
Yes, it is.
Versus just the academic?
It is. So it addresses the behavior, the social, emotional, all of that, to target any needs a student might have. Anything else?
Social, emotional.
Good.
Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, to the middle school. So one of the things, as Christina said, some of this stuff is kind of from last year. So we're just growing and we're just kind of adding to it. But the most important thing, I'm gonna go through each column just like everyone else did. We're gonna look at the HQMI. For middle school, we have Amplify and Carnegie. So Amplify is our reading and Carnegie is our math. That has been a big focus this school year. And those of you that have kids at middle school or any relatives at middle school, you know that has been a big role at the middle school campus. And that is, it's difficult for our students and it's difficult for our teachers as well. So we've been focusing on.
And the parents.
And parents as well. Yes, and parents as well. It is, with the math part, I can speak a lot to the math part because we had an Arby's training last week and we talked about dividing fractions, okay? So we know the computation behind dividing fractions, keep the first fraction the same, take the next one, flip it, take the reciprocal. Okay, computation, that's easy. No, we're not doing that. With Carnegie, you're taking a model and you're cutting it up, and that is a difficult process for kids. It's all about the models. So can you imagine as a teacher, we're having to change that mindset with our teachers. They're used to computation, the tricks, all these things, but now they've got to learn the models. They've got to learn this is the new way. So it is difficult for our students, parents, teachers, everyone involved. So that's a priority. The other thing on our learning column, we are focusing a lot on student engagement. We realize that sitting and getting, if the kids are just sitting there and they're just taking in the lecture, they're not getting anything. Okay, so we have at our campus, we've been doing a lot of peer talk, turn to your neighbor and talk, those kinds of things, get up. Kagan strategies, we've been pushing a lot of that because if our kids are interacting and they're teaching one another, then they're truly learning. The next thing we have been focusing in on that same column, there's several there that we're really proud
Let me
of.
stop you there for a second. Knowing that Carnegie and Eureka and Amplify are aligned with STAR 2.0. But as a math person, why is it in the best interest of our children to learn this new way?
They've got to learn the foundation. They've got to learn why is it that we do these tips and tricks. If they just go straight to the tips and tricks, then they're gonna have a difficult time in algebra. So it's all about the algebraic reasoning. So we've got to show them, and that's why we start even in the elementaries. You know, they've got manipulatives that they use, those kinds of things, and along the way, we build them up so that we make them more ready for algebra and those kinds of things. So we start when they're little. I know right now for middle school it is difficult because they're just learning that right now. So we're hoping that in the next few years it'll be that much easier on our students. So
Thanks.
yeah. Okay, the next one, high school career pathways and endorsements. We have been pushing that tremendously. We've worked with high school. We work really well together, and I can tell you that we were reflecting the other day with the counselors at our middle school. And the first year when I first got there, we just had actually it's the junior group, which is my daughter's group. We actually didn't even have, I think we had maybe one parent meeting and that was it. Poor juniors, right? That was our first year there. We're learning every year. The next year, we had a meeting and everybody was overwhelmed. So every year we're getting better and better. Now we're offering a career course for 8th graders and we sent them to the job fair. And then we had high school come over. So I think every year we're just getting a little bit better at that and training our parents. Student attendance, we know that if our students aren't there, they're not learning. So we've had a real big push for our students to come to school. You've seen our campaigns. We've been telling the kids, hey, if you come to school, if we reach that 96% attendance, you can use your phones during lunch. Because at middle school, we don't use the phones. And so that is a big incentive for our kids. We didn't reach it last week. We had, I think, 6th grade at 95%. So we're going to continue doing it. It's cost effective. It's not costing anybody anything, just us to monitor students in the cafeteria during lunchtime. And they actually were looking forward to that. Social emotional. Oh, we do a lot of this at our school. We do a lot of peer mediation, a lot of conflict resolution. Before we get into a fight, let's figure out what's going on. What's the root cause? This is nonstop. So our counselors do a really good job. We all, as a staff, do a really good job of counseling with our kids. Parent engagement, we focus a lot on our communication. We have been pushing out Parent Square. I think we were one of the first campuses to get Parent Square out. I kept telling the teachers, we had a competition. Who's got the most messages sent out on Parent Square? And so we gave prizes for that. So we have been, I tell the parents, the teachers, let the parents know. Let them know what's going on. Tell them, fill them in, help them out if they need something. Let us know. So we really have been pushing the Parent Square. Next thing is safety is always a priority at the campus. So that is something that we're always looking at. Currently right now, some of us are going through the threat assessment training. So we'll continue to do that. Next one. As far as our strategies for the teaching, once again, I talked about HQIM. We are undergoing training. We went to the RB's training last week. We also have ESC coming in once a week on Wednesdays during the school day to meet with our teachers at the middle school campus. This year, the tested subjects, I did give them an extra period so that they can meet every day because I knew how rigorous this new curriculum was going to be. So we did give them that opportunity because I wanted them to plan and I wanted them to internalize the lessons. I didn't want them to have to take that home because I know it's overwhelming. So we did that this year. It's been great. It's worked out for us. As far as learning, we continue to push the attendance incentives through the communities and schools. You've seen our pictures on Facebook. Communities and schools has been a big asset to us and they've helped us out with that. We are providing after-school tutorials. That's still ongoing. Career exploration class. We do have that for our 7th and 8th graders this year. Social emotional. We do have the PALS program that comes over from high school. They are mentoring currently some of our 8th grade students. That has worked out. Our kids like it. They've taught them about goal setting. They've also taught them about planning their classes for next year, looking at their grades on HACC. So it's been a good deal. We're privileged enough to have the YWCA. They come out and visit with our 6th graders at least once a week on Thursdays, 6th grade girls. And these ladies are retired. They come in, they work with our girls, specifically our girls, and the girls enjoy it. Even the ladies, the volunteers that have come, they said, you all have the best middle school, your kids behave. We go to CCISD and the kids aren't the same. She said, we will come here any day. So we really appreciate the YWCA coming out once a week. We do have Meet in the Middle, where our cheerleaders are building relationships with our adaptive students. We see them in the halls. It's a big initiative that we've had, and it's really worked out for us. Positive student referrals, we're still continuing to do that. We honor those students. For anything that they do on campus, teachers submit a positive student referral, and you'll see those pictures on Facebook here and there. The other thing that I'm really proud of is our student advisory panel. So we started this last year. I asked some of the teachers and counselors to submit names of students, and I said, we need to find out, the students are our customers. Let's see how they feel about everything. So we had a gallery walk. We put up questions. What's an effective lesson? What's not an effective lesson? What's good teaching look like? And the kids, they went around, they wrote some responses, and then we discussed them. I showed them to the teachers so that they would know. This is what our customers are saying about us. This is what we're doing good. This is what we're doing bad at. So that has really been good. I really enjoyed doing student advisory panel. They were so excited when I invited them, and because I wanted their opinion. They're the ones coming to school day in and day out, but I wanted to hear from them, their perspective. The next thing is on parent engagement. We've had open house. We've had parent trainings on the hack. We even, at our open house, we even had a session on HQIM where we discussed it with parents. So we understand what parents are going through. One of the things that we emphasized was the hack. That is so important as a parent. We encouraged all our parents to get onto the hack because that's going to help when they get to high school. And health and safety. We have been doing a lot with suicide prevention. That is a big issue amongst our adolescents. So we really have been, we've got communities and schools putting on various presentations with suicide and bullying as well. Any questions?
I have a question. You're an A campus. You didn't always used to be an A campus. If you could boil down to one effective strategy that has turned that campus around, what would it be?
I think it's building relationships with students and teachers and getting to know the teachers and what's going on, what's happening, how can we help you, and there's several things, being supportive of teachers as well, because they are overwhelmed. Kids are overwhelmed. Once they're overwhelmed, kids start feeling it. And structure. I always believe in structure, giving kids, these are the rules, this is what we're doing, setting expectations for them from the very beginning. Don't get me wrong, it was tough in the beginning, but as anything, it's always tough in the beginning, then it gets easier. So, it's a lot of work.
I've
It's
told
not
Ms.
easy.
Arias that, as you know, there's a lawsuit challenging the accountability system, and there's a chance there may not be campuses rated. Well, we're not going to allow the middle school to be cheated out of their A. So regardless of what Commissioner Morath or the TEA decides to do, they're an A campus and they're going to get that recognition because they work daggone. Them and the students and the parents work too hard not to be recognized.
And I just want to add to that, they turned it around pretty quick.
Yes, they did.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. When we went to Cal Middle School, Alvarado and I were looking, and he's like, what are you seeing pictures of? Well, they had a banner that had a B, and I said, I want a banner. So, I'm taking a picture of the banner.
You're going to get an A there. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. How's it going? Sorry, Gastro's lost. In case you were keeping
Down 2-0.
Yeah. So we're gonna get started about our strategies. So our new thing is we are exploring Tier 1 we're exploring through our LASSO grant high quality instructional materials just for math. English has been pushed back this year, so our math team is looking at this year. We have finished with Kagan. We have finished their 2 years that we've done with that. We're going to move on to lead forward training that will work specifically on how our teachers analyze data, and once they get the data, what to do with it. So that is something we're going along with teaching. With learning, it's one of the big things where we're pushing for is we're trying to, we started our accelerated learning plans, which I know that you're freshmen and are really feeling it right now. We are about to start testing for English 1 and Algebra 1 within 6 weeks. They will be taking their first crack at STAR, and then we will progress. We are expecting good results, we hope, and then afterwards, we have a plan for those students to either remediate and hopefully do better, or move on and get some prep and some college readiness ready for them as well.
That's a big change at his campus this year, where we're not testing English 1 and Algebra 1 in the spring. We're accelerating it, and then those who aren't successful on it, now they're in that same class with less kids. We're not asking them to go to tutorial that they may go to, they may not. And the ones who are successful, it's an opportunity for them for college and career readiness. It's a win-win for those kids, but it's tough. It's difficult because we're condensing a year into a semester by blocking it. It's also a little pricey.
For our social emotional, we've got some things we're working with as well, but the main thing I want to highlight is how well Communities and Schools has worked this year. Our students are getting a lot of support through that program.
I'm glad to hear that. That's great.
It's been a complete blessing. So thank you for doing that for us. She has got somebody in her office all the time, and those kids are really getting the help that they needed. Parent engagement is something that we're really trying to push this year. Hopefully, the high school students, you signed up for Pumpkins with Parents. That is coming up pretty quickly, where you get to decorate a pumpkin with your kid, your high school student. We also have the Tamale Fest that's coming up pretty quickly, where we'll have the opportunity to hopefully hang out with your kids, have some community involvement. All those things are coming down the pipe. For health and safety, we are starting, unfortunately, we've had to put our teachers through Narcan training. Because of the opioid crisis, it is a real thing. So every single teacher now has training on how to use Narcan, including our nurse, which was kind of iffy. Nurses really are not supposed to dispense medication that's not given to a doctor, so we had to get special permission for them to do that. So we've worked through all that as well. And we do have a significant problem with kids who are just flat out telling us, hey, I'm addicted to vaping. I mean, they just are. So we are looking for ways to help those kids with the amount of students we have in DAEP. Because of vaping, they just tell us they can't stop. So we're trying to figure out a way to help them that is reasonable, because their families as well are looking for any answer that they can. But with just the straight availability of getting those things, it truly is a problem that we're trying to address.
Metal detectors, they still rolling in this week?
Yes, and we had our 2 new staff members today who showed up. They will be helping us have our kids push through.
Let me explain to the board what happened there. We didn't add 2 staff. We had, traditionally, we had night watchmen, so to speak. They worked midnights, and so I think we can do a good job of securing our campus without that expense. So we gave those employees an opportunity to help us transition with the metal detectors, security, mobile, in and out of the bathrooms, checking on the vaping. So that's the resource that he's talking about.
So moving on to our needs. Wait,
let me back you up.
Okay.
So we're still online to when we come back from intercession for middle school and high school to do the metal detector, correct?
Yes, sir. The metal detectors are here. They're at Central
They're here.
Receiving. Training on calibrating them is Thursday from 9 to 11. Test run with students on Friday morning at middle school and high
So
school.
we'll need to get that word out to our parents that when our kids come back from intercession, the metal detectors at the middle school and the high school full bore. Okay, great.
So our big, so we have several under the teaching things that need some, I kind of want to address with you guys. So the main thing is the master schedule design. We're going to be one of those few places that's going to attempt to send kids to Coastal Bend College in Alice, Coastal Bend College in Beeville, have some Coastal Bend colleges here on campus, A&M Kingsville on campus, and A&M Kingsville here, all in one day, along with accelerated instruction. That master schedule, to build that thing to where every kid can do everything, takes about a month and a half to 2 months to see if it works. And then we look to expand to A&M Corpus Christi. That's our next expansion point, so that students can already start working on their Bachelor in Nursing. So that's the next big push that we're going to have to, that's the spring's work on how we're going to get that MOU done with them. And that way we can expand, towards that. So, and the other big push is like, we have time for teacher planning. So with the Wednesdays gone, we've had our teachers, especially our STAR tested teachers, they've been working very hard, staying after school, trying to get things done, and it's working. So it's hopefully, we'll see, like I said, great results in December.
Hold on, before you go on, I just have a real
Yes.
quick question. So you're saying that we're going to have some kids going to the campuses, and we're still going to provide online courses also for those kids at those universities to be able to stay on campus?
For some courses, yes. So
And
for,
adjunct professors,
Right.
where our people are credentialed to give the college instruction.
Because I know they were asking, a lot of students were asking that question last week, and they were being told they weren't getting a straight answer on whether or not the classes were going to be offered in both places.
so if I'm taking English 3 or English 4, that is only being offered on our campus in the Scoville-WS.
Okay.
Which is the 1301, 1302. If I'm taking some other course, let's say political science and government, that is going to be offered at A&M Kingsville. Now, if we can work out a deal or something to that effect, to where we can make that happen on campus, I just don't see that happening. We don't have the classroom space to pull that off. It's going to have to be something, something drastic, like a bond would have to happen in order to make all that stuff work.
What an
So for student learning, I'm sure that for attendance, I don't know if you've seen our Facebook page, these kids doing these minute to win it challenges. So what we asked our students to do is to make teams of 10. So they all hold each other accountable. And Ms. Vega calculates everybody's attendance in that team. And what you're seeing on Facebook are the tiebreakers. So if they have the same exact percentage, 99% attendance, they're both tied, then they'll go out and do minute to win it in front of the entire cafeteria. Kids have a lot of fun. And it's working. Our attendance was higher. We actually led a whole entire day when that type never happens. We had the highest attendance rate last week one day. I was shocked. We will begin doing our zero periods next semester as part of House Bill 1416. So that's something new as well. For social emotional, we are starting Ms. Moody just gave you that whole presentation about everything that we've done to start getting that ball rolling in that area. And we're also really looking forward to, how should I put it? I'm really looking forward to making sure that our kids are actually meeting those marks. It's really important to us that we send out a quality kid when they leave us. And I think we have been doing that. Now that we're able to quantify it, I think it'll be that much better. Back to student learning, I need to tell you something about that I forgot. We are starting a Compass Academy with Optional Flexible School Day. So that is a new academy that will work very similar to ACC, except it has a very a CTE component, so kids can stay on our campus, fulfill their CTE requirements, and still accelerate in all subjects, as well as get some college readiness done as well. So that's something new that will happen. That's Optional Flexible School Day is going to afford us the opportunity to do. Health and safety, once again, like I said, our biggest issue is going to be how we deal with the vaping. I'm proud to report, though, that we were the guinea pig in the district. The ESC2 came in and did our safety audit, where they checked the doors, went around the school, see if they could break in, and we had no findings. So we were free and clear.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
Do we have the vaping detectors already in there?
We do.
Are they working? I mean, is it helping?
There's some issues that we're working through. Some of them are too sensitive. We just have to play with it. But it's we get one, and then
we've got some ventilation problems that will be addressed if the bond's successful with, right now, if a kid goes in there and vapes, the air, it doesn't clear it out, so I could walk in and it could go off on me.
That's a problem.
Yeah, that's not
That's a
good.
problem.
But Patrick's working on that.
But once again, it's a money issue to fix that type of stuff.
I get it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we do get it.
Really excited about Compass.
Yes, me too.
Really excited about that.
There's just so many opportunities for our kids.
There
It's
is.
very exciting.
And on that note, I'm going to fill in for Ms. McLaren, who's currently at the National Alternative Conference in Tampa, hopefully enjoying her time there. Quickly for her, the big thing, like Gabe said, the Compass Academy for ACC will look just like regular school, except we will utilize the optional flexible school day plan so that each student that is on campus has the opportunity to have a unique schedule that is really tailored and fits their needs. And so kind of ping-ponging back to high school, we're having a meeting this Thursday to finalize the Compass Academy, the rules, the procedures, the protocols, and making sure everything ties back to ACC for the district so that when we bring this application to you all in November for your review and approval, you'll have everything at that time and to understand the true vision from the district to ACC as well as high school. And like I said, between optional flexible school day being applied at ACC, one other thing that we are currently bringing to the campus and will continue to include with optional flexible school day is the Texas College Bridge. That is a rigorous program that is brought to us via digital means through several MOUs related to universities within Texas. And this is just another opportunity that not only ACC students have, high school as well, but in particular at ACC, that's really helping target that CCMR point while also helping double up on some of the math and English that those students still more than likely need in order to either do well on a STAR test or just graduate, period. And so that's another real good opportunity that we're seeing the benefits from this year. Are there any questions about ACC, optional flexible school day, or anything related to the district as far as anything you've heard tonight so far? And I'll close by saying that strategic plan, district improvement plan, campus improvement plan, there is an opportunity for us to triangulate each one of those. And now that all three have been kind of finalized and are now in their form, one of our main targets this year through our committee work at the campus and district level will be to align each of those plans through the comprehensive needs assessment. And I do apologize, that was a little long in the district plan, but the reason for that was because we spent a lot of time at the DIC level working in our committees with our stakeholder groups to truly extrapolate what we could from the district standpoint in terms of our data, our values, our beliefs, our systems, our structures, what makes us TM. And that's kind of what you see there on paper. And the strategic plan kind of puts a new spin and breathes new life into those key priorities that were identified at both the campus and district level. And so for this spring semester, when we revisit again the CNA through our committee work, the strategic plan will be kind of layered back onto the DIP and the SIP so that everything aligns and the work doesn't just seem like it is another one more thing plan that we have to manage, but is true alignment through each of the visions and each of the things that we're wanting to do, both at the district and campus level. So on that note, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody did a great job.
Madam President, it is the administration's recommendation that the board approve the District Improvement Plan, DIP, and Campus Improvement Plan, CIP, as presented. I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second that the board approve the district improvement plan and the campus improvement plan as presented. All those in favor? None opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, moving on to number 4, the annual report, special programs.
Dr. White?
Madam President, members of the board, Ms. Moody's going to once again walk us through 2 really major programs that she's been tasked with, one of which will be the Emergent Bilingual and English as a Second Language programs, as well as the Gifted and Talented program. I'm sure you're familiar with those, but this year, starting last year, but this year in particular, we've revamped each of those programs. And so tonight's an opportunity from CNI, the department, to debrief you all on those updates and changes.
Okay, so we'll start with GT. And the reason GT was coming to you guys tonight is because our nomination window opens November 6th. And so we want to present to you guys the way we do the nominations, how that works. And so here we go. Our advisory committee, we meet every year, multiple times throughout the year. We determine any changes that need to be made through a program evaluation that's done at the end of the year. We did that for the first time in quite some time at the end of last year, and it did result in several changes for this school year, so I'll go over those in just a minute. Basic goals of what we want for our students: we want them to succeed, we want them to be challenged. GT participation data, this is something that I'm very proud of. If you'll look at the top one over here with all the blue, the main focus of GT identification is to equitably identify our students so that our demographics are proportionally represented in our GT identified students. And so we have, after last year's brand new identification process, we have gotten significantly closer to proportionate identification. So you'll see our Hispanic population is represented at 74%. Our white is represented at 23.7% or 24%. Asian is at almost 1%. And then everything else is the rest, which is extremely close to our campus and district demographic. So we really felt like the way we targeted our equitable identification process last year really helped push us towards that. So we're really proud of that. The bottom graph is our identification per grade level. You can see that some grade levels, we really didn't push nominations very well. And so we have a pretty low number of GT identified students, whereas in some grade levels, we maybe over-identified our GT students. And so those under-identified grade levels, it was last year 3rd and 5th, is now 4th and 6th, are where we are least proportionate to our demographic. So that's something that we'll really hit in our nomination window this year, is really asking teachers to take a look at all of their students and their capabilities and really making sure that we're pushing nominations the way they should be pushed.
Can you say those grade levels again?
I believe it's 4th and 6th now. It was 3rd and 5th. It should be 4th and 6th this year. And then we do have our economically disadvantaged are not as well represented as maybe our Hispanic population is, but we are very, very close to our district level economic disadvantaged representation. I think we're as a district at 56%, if I remember correctly. And so we're pretty close, and I think we're at 51 or 50% in our identification. We do have some twice identified students, twice exceptional students. We're really proud of that, making sure that we get all of the students and their capabilities, not what our matrix says, but what their ability tells us. We have 17 identified 504 students and 11 special ed, 6 special ed students and 11 bilingual students. Which, if I could foray for just a moment, because I do manage both programs, we tested this morning. Our kindergarten initial screening was this morning, or it's this week, and so I tested both of our DLI classrooms, our kindergarten DLI classrooms. In one classroom, we had 8 students that would be well over our national norm. Last year, when we identified in our nomination process, we dropped the initial screener down to 56% so that we could screen a second set of population. This is 8 students at 75% or higher on national norms coming from one classroom, the DLI classroom. The other classroom, the second DLI classroom, we identified 5 at 75% or higher, and I'll show you the assessment in just a minute. Any other classroom we've looked at has been at 2 to 3, and historically, that's about where they're at, is 2 to 3 per classroom. So an exceptional amount of learning is happening in those dual language classrooms. Mr. Gomez, Dr. Gomez sold to us that dual language was a GT program, and I truly believe that what we're doing in those classrooms has got to trickle out to our other classrooms, and we'll continue working through that.
Could the variable be that the Spanish proficient dominant kid is receiving instruction in their native language?
Bingo.
And they're learning more?
Yes. They are not sitting in that silent phase. So typically in kindergarten, they have a silent period that lasts about 2 years. Kinder to first grade is typically a new to U.S. schools student. Kinder to first grade is typically what they consider their silent period, where they don't speak. And so they don't acquire knowledge. They just sit there kind of in limbo, picking up those normal discussion, they're called CALPS, C-A-L-P-S. Can't remember what they stand for, but it's the normal discussionary, conversational acquisition of language, CALPS. They are not sitting in that silent phase anymore. They are actually discussing with each other. They're engaged with each other. They're talking all the time. The writing that is coming out of those classrooms is phenomenal. And you guys will get a DLI update after we have mid-year assessment data to actually to show our growth. But I think that you're going to be pretty proud of that. Back to GT. I'm sorry, I'm very excited about that other program, and I'll present on that in a little bit. This is our GT data. It is typically what you would see of GT data. So one of the areas that we're going to work with is reading mastery in those are last year's 3rd graders to 4th grade now. In that 4th grade group, really pushing mastery of reading skills and trying to push kids to the next threshold. Really everywhere else, things look really, really strong. So pretty proud of our GT accomplishments. And I will tell you though, based on our program review last year, at the lower levels, we made a significant change in the way we do GT. So prior to last year, we had GT teachers. They pulled out kids all day long. Last year, we had a single STEAM teacher that would pull out kids when they could, particularly every 3 weeks or so. And the classroom teachers were responsible for the GT instruction. This year, based on that program review we did at the end of the school year, we have gone to clustered classrooms. So that's partially due to our program evaluation, but also because we actually read the state plan. The state plan is very clear. 33% of, if you have one identified GT student, 33% of that classroom has to be GT. They have to be clustered. And we weren't following that. We were spreading our GT students so that it was fair for teachers. So you get 2 GT and you get 2 GT and you get 2 GT, which cost us a ton of money last year because we had to, you get certified in GT, you get certified. So everybody got certified last year to the tune of $600 a person. And so we are saving that money now and putting it right back into students and what they need. So we're pretty proud of that too. But so now kids are in clustered classrooms, and so they're doing so many projects, so many GT things. A lot of the curriculum is pretty strong, and so I think our intermediate teachers will tell you they're excited about the new curriculum because this is the first time in GT students' lives that they are struggling. And they are experiencing productive struggle, but they are getting the best conversations out of those kids. So what are the big program changes? We clustered classrooms through 1st through 5th. Our equitable nomination and screening process is different last year.
Let me stop you for a second. What impact is the clustering going to have on TIA?
Okay, so everybody thinks that the TIA, the GT teacher is gonna have it easy. Really, they're gonna have it the hardest.
Well, that's what because it's all based on growth.
It's based on growth. It is very hard to maintain that extremely high academic achievement. And so those GT clustered teachers are really going to have to maintain a very high standard of academic achievement. When we know, like 3rd grade going to 4th grade, things get tougher. And so kids are going to have, typically a little dip. But they are going to have to overcome and compensate for that typical dip. So
We're in our data collection year this year. It's really important for our teachers to do well so that next year they can earn designation.
And I will say that all of our GT cluster teachers, our principals sent out a survey to their teachers and said who would be willing to do this, who wants to take on GT. So everybody that is teaching a GT cluster classroom, they wanted to be there. We went to Flower Bluff. They run GT classrooms and clusters, and so we went and watched and observed them over the course of a morning and then another group in the afternoon. And so we got to see kind of how they maintain their schedules, how they run things, and so that was beneficial for our teachers. But it is going to be a challenge for the TIA teachers. We instituted GT determination committees on each campus. We've always had a committee, but we really focused on that equitable identification this year. We're implementing TPSPs, which is Texas Performance Standards Project. It is in the GT state plan. It's the curriculum that it's mentioned there that we need to be using, and so our kids will be doing 1 to 2 TPSP projects per year in each grade level. We also instituted a campus coordinator, and they are getting a significant stipend, but they are doing all of the parent communication. They're working with teachers and facilitating any classroom, those clustered teachers, they're working with them. And then middle school this year is going to start back with a Destination Imagination team. So what we used to call Odyssey of the Mind, it's been Destination Imagination for a while now, but they're gonna put together a challenge team. They are already meeting, and they have like 6 or 7 groups and teams that are already meeting. So that we're excited about that too.
What grade levels are there?
Middle school, 6th through 8th. This is our qualification timeline. It's pretty standard. And then that initial screener for kindergarten and all nominated students is called the NNAT 3. It's an online test. It's rather expensive, but it's very comprehensive, and it takes out all language. So this only tests not what you know, but your ability to think, reason, and rationalize. So it is all puzzle-based. They have to fill in the missing piece, and that's just one part of our identification process. We use that, and then once they make it through the top, now we'll move it to 75%. We had dropped it down to 60 in some grade levels and 55 in some. Once they make it through that, then we'll use the other pieces there. This is what our matrix looks like. They score on each piece of that matrix, and so many above the line gets them looked at, and so many below the line they have to meet, and that's how we identify them.
And how do these kids get nominated?
Teachers, parents, or the students themselves can nominate. We'll do a campus training at each in the staff. Oh my gosh, the staff meetings, and we'll train teachers on what it is to be gifted versus academically ready. And then teachers will submit nominations, and then parents are encouraged to. We do a parent night for GT, which covers kind of both ends. What are we doing in the program? How do you get in the program? In that parent night, where last year we did one consolidated one at the high school, which was very well attended, but we also sent out like $700 worth of mailers, and we're not going to do that this year. We're going to do them campus-based, and we're sending out information via Parent Square for that. And then this is our kindergarten identification process. All of them get screened. They go to round 2 based on their achievement. And then we test them with those other tests. We did add 2 additional qualifiers, which was leadership and creativity. So you can maybe not be strong academically, or you maybe could be dyslexic and score really low in reading on that second set of screening. But if you have creativity and leadership skills, you could still be considered for GT. All of that data goes to the nomination process through the determination committee, and then we make the decision on whether that classroom is an instructional need for that child. Because it's not necessarily based on, we want them in it, it's, is it a need for that child? Can their needs be met through that service? And then they get placed in first grade. This year for kindergarten, which we're really proud of, our GT coordinator will start servicing them in March, which we had to wait last year until first grade. They will receive services once they're identified in March. 1st through 11th grade will follow this pattern. It's very similar, but they do have to be nominated through an online nomination application. And that looks like this in both Spanish and English. It's open for 2 weeks. I think last year we did for 3 weeks. This year, because of where Thanksgiving falls, it'll only be open for 2 weeks. Any questions about GT? I told Dr. White I would keep it short, and that wasn't short, sorry.
So good.
Yeah, I super appreciate the fact on equitability and trying to meet the school's demographics. Because I can 100% tell you when I was in school here, it was not that way whatsoever. So it really means a lot to me. And then I was going to say, for a GT child, we do get additional funding above the basic allotment. And I love that we're testing everyone at the kindergarten level. What would it cost to do that at first or second grade?
So we've talked a lot about this actually, because I'm keeping a running tally of districts that moved identification to second grade. And even though the state plan says kindergarten, McAllen ISD does it, I have a running list in my notebook of who does do second grade. Then kindergarten would be on a nomination basis. So we could do it and keep the same cost efficiency. I will tell you the GT committee is very strongly advocating for an additional round of grade level screening, similar to the kindergarten process. I can tell you last year we spent $7,986 just on one screening avenue. Fortunately, we were able to save some of the seats from that, so it's going to be about half of that this year just for the INAT 3. So it's very expensive, but that GT committee, we weren't ready to just say, yes, we need to screen all third graders again, which is when we would do it in that transitional year, kinder, and then the transitional year of third, or possibly sixth before they go to middle school, but I think that might be too late. Particularly focused on third. We could do it, but it'll cost about, I would say, close to $10,000 to do it. Which our allotment is $76,000, right, Phil? But some of that goes to stipends, some of it goes to salaries, some of it goes to, so what we have to play with isn't $76,000. And so we're very, very careful in how we have allocated funding this year. We've been able to be very diligent in doing that. So pretty excited about this year. Our teachers are excited about this year, so I think that's the biggest thing. And our kids are enjoying this year, so.
And then last question, once they're, I guess, once they get in sixth grade and up, what are the different GT, I guess you mentioned Destination Imagination, amazing program.
It's very fun, yeah. It's very expensive too.
What are other?
So we in our identification process now, we identify their strengths. So they qualify math, reading, science, social studies, creativity, or leadership. Prior to last year, we don't have an identification criteria or area. So we're treating all GT kids currently as just a GT kid. So we're serving them in the secondary level through advanced academics, honors classes, or at the high school, dual credit classes. But they are also required to participate in an additional GT project, or like at the high school, one act play qualifies. The high school developed a list of things that would qualify as something that they would showcase. Every campus does a showcase at the end of the year. Last year, high school did a digital showcase, I believe. Every other campus had a parent event that showcased something that they did through that year. Yeah, very excited about. I mean, very, very excited about our equitable identification. Not to say that it wasn't being done before, but now it is intentionally being done. And I want to clarify: we don't look at names, we don't look at demographics. It's the process itself that is equitable. We make sure that we take the language out of things. We really are strategic about that. So.
And what is the size limit of the classrooms?
There is no size limit. If they qualify, and we serve them. Our GT classrooms right now are sitting, like fourth grade, for example, is at capacity at 22, just like everybody else. And then our cluster classrooms are also taking advanced academic kids. So in our screening process last year, we identified kids that maybe didn't get into GT but are advanced academic students, and so they are also in that cluster. So in each GT cluster, there's probably 9 to 10. In some grade levels where there's 25 kids, we may have 12 in each classroom. The rest of that classroom is advanced academic students, very high academic students, except in intermediate where they are crowded in all of the other rooms. So like new students have to go where there's fewer numbers. So we've got some non-identified students, but they're still receiving their RTI services. They're still receiving the services that they need in those classrooms.
And you know what the incremental funding is for a GT student versus a regular student, or?
I would lie to you and tell you there's a number that's on my tongue and it's 0.5%.
Okay.
But that I'm not 100% sure. Like our bilingual, I can tell you. Dual language is 0.15%. Bilingual is 0.1%. English proficient in dual language is 0.05%, which has never been funded before, which is now being funded. So that's pretty cool too. But I want to say it's
That's a pretty good.
But Philip,
pretty
you're
good-
always saying that the pie doesn't grow. So even with the DLI 0.5, the pie's not growing?
Right.
So it is for DLI.
The slides for GT got bigger. Yeah. But if the regular ADA at the top doesn't change, that just means the GT
So what
slides got
would
bigger.
make the pie
Some other
grow
slides got
is the
smaller.
basic allotment to grow?
Yes.
Okay.
which is based on ADA, which our GT kids typically
They come to
contribute pretty significantly to our weighted ADA, or to our ADA.
So it's important to identify those kids.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And our dual language kids, you can look at their little race cars in the hallway on their attendance. They're there. They're at school. So I think,
They can't afford to miss.
yeah, well,
They get behind. Plus, they don't want to.
I've been in the classrooms this year quite a bit, and they really do have a lot of fun. I don't know if y'all knew this, but one of the girls that gave the pledge at the State of the District, she was an English proficient student, no Spanish, and she.
No one would have ever known
No one
that.
would have known. Mackenzie, she's an English proficient student.
So she's in that program to learn Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for you. Once a student is identified as GT and they are in the program and they opt to exit the program, will they still be identified as GT throughout? It's not like.
They go, so our current handbook, which is another thing you got in your board book, we wrote a handbook last year. There's a furlough process first. So they're furloughed for a year. That does generate funding. After that year, we have to meet again, and we meet with the committee and the parent, and we say, okay, are they going to remain in the program or are they not? Like, for example, last year when we required high school GT students to participate in certain things, not even participate in something that you're not participating in, but prove that you're participating in something extra. We did end up furloughing some students. or they didn't want to take dual credit classes, or they had been identified since kindergarten and didn't even remember that they were GT. And so they weren't in advanced classrooms, so we furloughed them. Most of those were 11th and 12th grade kids, so. Furlough does, exit doesn't. Okay, if there are any other GT questions?
Awesome program. I'm glad to see it growing again.
It's a underserved population because they can fly solo. But hopefully some of the things we're doing will help them fly higher, not by themselves. Emergent bilingual program. I typically get caught up in dual language, but emergent bilingual is a whole program. It's not just dual language. Our district is very, very unique in that we have 4 bilingual programs, 4 emergent bilingual programs. We have ESL pullout at the secondary level. We have bilingual early exit transitional. We have bilingual dual language 2-way at kinder and first, and dual language 1-way at pre-K. So we are maintaining with our staff 4 separate emergent bilingual programs, which is a challenge, but we're doing it. We're doing it really well, I think.
Why not 2-way at pre-K? Staffing?
No. We have the staff. We only had 8 identified bilingual students in pre-K this year. If we give those English proficient seats away in pre-K for kids that they already qualify for pre-K, by the time that group gets to kindergarten, not everybody had the opportunity for those seats. Those seats are gone because once they started, they stay in. And so that would have been a loss of 10 seats that not everybody would have had the opportunity to.
But if we have universal pre-K, we can do that.
We can, yes. Mm-hmm. And the only difference with 1-way and 2-way is that we don't generate that 0.5 funding for each.
Well, there's more than that. The 2-way is the gold standard.
Yes, but we are still running a 2-way in pre-K because we only had 8 students. So the teacher is teaching in Spanish with our 8 students and teaching in English with the other students.
Did it have the PD?
And our second grade teachers already have the initial training. They'll all get, again in January, another round of training. And then we have embedded support with Gomez and Gomez. We're on a text basis. Identification data for our bilingual program. Our emergent bilingual students are pretty significantly identified as SPED. Our SPED population in general is about 11%, and 7.2% of our emergent bilingual students are identified as special ed. So that's something that we want to look at, and I think that we're already addressing that issue with how we're serving them initially. So I think that will continue to drop.
Are we, and I know there's identification process through testing and assessment, but are we, and I don't want to say through educational malpractice, but are we creating SPED students because we're not teaching them in their native language?
Yes. Now, some students do have just disabilities,
Correct.
regardless of language.
Correct.
But I will tell you, and I hate to do this, but going back to the dual language classroom that we tested today, it is a typical classroom of emergent bilingual students. 2 students scored below average. Classroom next door, 7 students scored below average. There is something happening in using their native language and learning a second language that is connecting things differently in their brain, that's allowing them to learn at a different level. And I just think, you can go in there and they ask to go to the bathroom. Well, Abanya, they are speaking in Spanish routinely in those classrooms. Abraham Lincoln es muy guapo. Yeah. It's written out by kindergartners on there, and it's displayed. They are speaking and thinking in 2 separate languages, and that is doing something, I think, to their brain.
My sister-in-law, who grew up in a predominantly Hispanic home with my wife, said she had never heard the Pledge of Allegiance in Spanish till the State of the District.
Oh, wow.
And Our whole campus is getting that. Every kid on that campus is getting that because of these 5 classrooms, which will next year be 7. And the next year will be 9, and so on and so forth. But just having said all of the great stuff, it's very expensive. It is very expensive. But the benefits I think that we're gonna see long-term are gonna far outweigh the cost.
I don't think you can put a price tag on a kid's
I guess-
education.
Yeah, I would love for you all to go into.
No, you can't, and let me tell you what's gonna happen. And this isn't advocacy, this is not an opinion, it's a fact. If the bond passes and we have space and we can get more kids at primary, enrollment will grow. And with enrollment growing, the money follows the kids.
I can tell you I have 3 parents right now that check in with me routinely to see if there's been an opening in dual language so that she can transfer her kids here. It's 2 separate families, but 3 kids total. So that they can transfer their kids here and apply to be in the dual language classrooms. It won't happen in 1st grade because we still have an 8-person waiting list of our currently enrolled students. But I'm watching that kindergarten group for one of the moms. I mean, they want in so that they can be in dual language. We've attracted 3 teachers from different districts because they wanted dual language. 1 in 3rd grade, 2 in 1st grade this year. It's because they wanted to do dual language. So I think the program in itself is gonna pay for itself. Chrissy, I know you're looking at me like K-12.
I'm actually paying attention.
That's our serious face. Economically disadvantaged is highly represented in our emergent bilingual population. That's more so than our non-emergent bilingual population. That's neither here nor there. Doesn't really matter to me or the kids, but I just thought you might want to know that. It is a statistic. This is our actual STAR-based program data. Now, what you have in your deal is not like this because I had a little epiphany today. I'm like, well, we could put all these numbers up there, but if they don't know the comparison to all, what does it matter? So I added up here the all comparison. So the reds are where they underperform. Yellows, they're within 10% of the all population. And then greens, they are overperforming their peers. We've got a lot of green. Secondary, we have some work to do, but I'd also like to kind of caution you with worrying about the reds in the secondary level because it's intermediate, middle, and then high school. Because if they can exit the program, we exit the program. If they can't exit the program, they stay in the program, and that's because there's difficulty exiting the program. So it's not unnatural to see more red there. But we do need to do a better job with our ESL in the secondary level. They have a ton of support at the primary and intermediate, and then that kind of drops off a little bit at secondary. I can give you guys all this chart. I have it, I can copy it before I leave today so you can really look at it. But where we are overperforming is very interesting because like US history, our emergent bilingual population scored 100% in approaches. And that's at the secondary level where we've exited a ton of kids. So whatever our US history teachers are doing at the secondary level, we need to study that. We need to know what they are doing with kids. They're probably using charts, graphs, maps, visual aids, which we all know are ELPs. And so maybe we need to push that into a math classroom. Maybe we need to push that into a language arts classroom. So those are just some of the things that we'll use this piece of information, not to, cause alarm or anything like that, but just to really help us hone what we need to do with kids. Program changes for this year, of course, we implemented dual language. Our stipend for those dual language teachers, because it is a ton of work, they are essentially planning in two languages, is $5,000. The current bilingual stipend has always been, for as far as I know, $3,000. And then this year at the secondary level, for the teachers that contribute to the compliance part of ESL, so they're English language arts teachers, the teachers that sit in the LPACs, the teachers that provide the actual services for students, they received a $1,500 stipend for the first time this year. They had been doing all of that work before, they had been responsible for the compliance piece of it, but had never been compensated for that extra time or work. So we're doing that this year as well. We are really pushing Summit K-12 for TELPA support. It's a program that is purchased through our shared service agreement with the Service Center for Title III. We don't, we've been purchasing it for probably 7 years and nobody knew. I tried to buy it last year and the rep told me, you already have this. I said, no, we don't know that we already have it, but we did, we had it. And so this year we're really implementing it. We've trained all of our teachers and hopefully we see some growth in that. Identified target areas, secondary is science and English 1 and English 2. Science, because the vocabulary is so rich at the secondary level in science, I think that's why we're getting hit there. But again, utilizing those ELPs, let's capitalize on something that U.S. history is doing well, and we'll be working through that. Our dual language program, this is our first year. You will get another report in middle of year on how they're actually doing. We have beginning of year data, but it really doesn't mean anything because we don't have a comparative yet. And then you also received a dual language emergent bilingual program guide, which we had never had before. This is what's currently served in our dual language program. There's 8 emergent bilinguals in pre-K, 18 in kinder, which we also have 19 English proficient, 17 and 22. And this is what it looks like. It has our language allocation plan in there, which is a part of dual language. It also has all the key components of what Gomez and Gomez is. So if you want to know what language of the day looks like, it's in that guide. Something that we really wanted to write for parents. And I think you guys got that in your board book. It also includes the rubrics that we're still currently developing for language acquisition for those English proficient students. And then we'll utilize our next steps. We're going to look at middle of year data and really study our language allocation plan and see what we need to adjust, or are we right on track. And then we're going to work with our dual language teachers to refine those language acquisition rubrics to measure student growth. And so we should be able to tell you guys 70% of our kids are on track with our language acquisition, both L1 and L2, language, first language and second language. And then we have training coming up for our dual language teachers in January. And then we are going to have to streamline our application process. That's our next steps. Any questions? EB, dual language.
Awesome program. I think it's going to be exciting to see, definitely the data this year, but the data years down the road, of what this program's going to do. Thank you, guys. If you have any questions, email. If you want to visit a classroom, find me. I'll take you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 5, discuss and consider the approval of a one-time retention payment for TMISD staff members.
Madam President, members of the board, I would like to table this agenda item, and I'll tell you why. Mr. Ayaga is not here. I'd like for him to be here when we consider it. And I also want to provide some data to you that is incomplete right now. There's 7 data points that I think will help you make a better decision, and even may motivate at least 2 of you to say, bring back the compensation plan, because we've really worked hard to curtail expenditures. Let me give you what those 7 categories are. I have data points in 2 of them that are somewhat impressive. Personnel. Currently, in 6 weeks, we've reduced personnel $493,068. Substitutes. In 6 weeks, from this time last year to this time this year, we've reduced the expenditures on subs, $9,155. I'm going to get our utilities our utilities, what we paid last year at this time to what we're doing this year. I want you to have access to legal, what legal was this year, what it was last year, travel, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Carroll to do as good a job as he possibly can into giving you as close as audit numbers from the 22-23 school year. I think the last projection he had was a little over 1.5.
Right.
I think that's coming down.
I would adjust it, I think I'm at 1.3.
And hopefully it'll come down even more. But I think if you have that data, it'll give you a better source of information to do what I know all of you want to do. Every single one of you, even if you vote no or can't do it, you're doing it because of your responsibility in the community to be fiscal servants. We all know that. What I want to do is try to give you some hard data so you can make a more informed decision. Is that fair?
I think that's definitely 100% fair.
I want to make a comment, I'm sorry. You know, it's been hard to take, to have the no vote to come to this retention stipend. And it's, I want the teachers and the community to know that it's been hard on all the board members, I think. I'm not speaking for anybody but myself, but it's been hard to accept not being able to do it. So, I did go and I did meet with Mr. Van Maitre before we came in here, and I think I made it pretty clear on where I stand is, I was hoping he would table this because I do want to see the compensation plan come back. I've seen what the teachers are doing. I was really impressed. Mr. Alvarado was there, Mr. Van Maitre was there. The Special Olympics this past week, so many teachers, paras, just did a fun, and that's where it really sunk in. That, you know what, I know we have a deficit. I know, we're upside down right now, but that really encourages me to see that, the numbers are going down. And I really do want our teachers and our staff to have, something promising to look forward to for the later months of this year. And I am requesting that you do bring back the compensation plan, because I will support it. And I just want everybody to know that.
And I think it's a good reminder that the steps were given to teachers, but there's steps not for all staff. So we have staff that did not receive anything. And that's, you can't even really talk about it, right?
Well, I'm one.
How difficult
We
it
need one
is.
more, so whoever wants to jump in.
You know how I voted
Well,
last
exactly, that's
time.
what I'm saying.
The only thing is that, to take that into consideration and the budgeting and the functionings that y'all looked at to try to come back and find that money is remarkable, because of the fact that, like Ben was saying, our teachers, plus all this new HQIM process, that's hard on them. Plus the state and all the new things that they have to do in the classroom. They're being troopers about it, and they need to be compensated for it. There's no, $500 that doesn't help them in their TRS. Teachers deserve it. That's what I said last time. I'm still sticking with it. Thank you, Ben.
I have just a question, and I'm jumping ahead here, because I would like to see that. And I'm looking at the current month expenditures versus our annual budget And I don't know if there's, some top-heavy administrative costs here in this first year. If you extrapolate that number.
encumbrances.
I'm sorry?
It's encumbrances. Can you explain that to him?
there's
Why, it's,
about-
that, you're looking at the 10% of
We're looking at
actuals?
the 4,400,000
Yeah,
for this
it's
month. If you
skewed.
extrapolate that out, it goes
Yeah,
up to 2 million.
it's skewed because he's,
It does include encumbrances, and those encumbrances might be like, some of the departments, like I'll use, maybe, maintenance. They've got recurring costs, so they'll put a bus maintenance blanket PO in for this month, and they've already got September's in there they already have October's in there in August. So there are some things there's about $1 million of expenditures in that, or encumbrances in that figure. Things that they've been earmarked, they haven't been spent yet, we haven't written the check yet, but we've already got them in there because we need to get the POs out because we know the service is coming up, or we need it in there in case we need the service. So when you take that $1 million out, the whole month of September
Okay.
drops below the 8.3%, which is 1/12 of a year, And so, yeah, you're right. There is some top heavy in some of the departments because of encumbrances of now payroll's the biggest thing in there, and payroll's there.
That's
You
on-
know.
it's
We have
on-
two
As it
two
should be.
bi-weekly payrolls
Should
a
be our
month, and the
highest.
one payroll, the big payroll in the middle of the month. That's in there. That's expense. That's already there.
but
Yeah,
there's,
I guess
in
knowing
that,
that,
there's
though,
6 or
if-
7 positions that we just haven't filled. That's where that $491,000 is coming from. And it's been spread out literally across the district, and not just in one area, not in high school. It's primary campus, this building, high school, middle school.
And like, for example, if you look, I'll talk about the functions at the bottom where there's just one thing, like there's only one function for the appraisal district. Well, we make quarterly payments to them. So in the month of September, we've already spent 25% of that budget because the first payment's due in September. Or actually, it's the last payment from the last year's cycle. So we've already spent 25% of that budget in the first month. But that means that's one thing, that line item is real easy to look at because it's only one thing in that line. But when you jump up to all the other one, all function 11 is included there together. So I did kind of, because Mr. Van Metre asked me, well, why do you include the encumbrances? Well, once you do an encumbrance, the money's already set aside, that earmarks the budget so people know, yeah, I haven't spent it yet, but I know I'm going to spend it next month. So we go and we encourage them. In fact, we need the PO in there ahead of time. So the encumbrances are there before the expense.
Another challenge that he has that I still haven't wrapped my arms around, being new to a year-round school, is in traditional calendar, I would cut that budget off in early April, and we would know how much we could roll forward into the general fund. He can't do that because we have to do 6 weeks worth of school to start the new year.
Yeah.
So that's very challenging, but that percentage of expenditures is very skewed.
Yeah, so it's important for next month when we get that information that we not only have POs committed out of our balance, but also actual spent. So we can
Right,
take
so
out
we
the
know,
income, yes.
right.
And then
I
the
mean-
second item is, you gave us the percentage of what was spent per that function, but also what is the expected percentage for this time of year? So that appraisal one, yes, we spent 25% of that budget, but our expected was 25%.
Right.
So
That is another problem because I need to go back and do last September's so I can do the comparison. I had to zero out that column because I didn't have time to go back and recreate last September, so I'd have the apple to apple.
yeah, okay.
I'm working on
And I-
that, so
I guess-
you'll have the apple to apple. Or-
Comparing to last September, okay, not
Yes,
the
well,
best
What do you mean? What do you mean?
because-
What would be the
You want to
expected
just
number?
do the math divided by 12?
No, so some of them will be divided by 12.
Uh-huh.
Some of them will be front-loaded.
Right.
But what you're truly forecasting where that spend will land. Is it a bell curve? Is it, yeah. So,
Seasonal
Well, I guess I was asking,
Yes.
what would you say is the expected? Because to me, the expected is the budget. I'm hoping I don't spend all the budget, but what else could I compare it to?
Well, the other thing is, we want our campuses to spend their money early versus late, because you have allocated resources for this year's kids. And spending that money in the last 6 weeks of instruction is not what you want. Fair to say?
Fair to say. Should be.
Yes. So that's going to be difficult to measure, because we're going to front load those expenditures, but the balance should reflect
But if you're
that.
expecting to front load, that's.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, we
that's
should.
where the difference is.
Yeah, I see that.
Like I'm
But
expecting
you're
to.
You're asking me like if I know what that bell curve is, I mean, but all I have is my historical data. I'd have to really get into the weeds.
No, I think that's a very good start, is the historical data. And then you could add on to that for some of the accounts. But again, I'm trying to say the historical data went over the budget X%. That's what I'm saying. It may not be the best marker,
Well,
but it's a very good start.
only 22-23 school year. I think prior to that, you were okay, weren't you?
Right.
Now, COVID will skew your numbers, but
We gotta start somewhere.
correct. And the bottom line is, we can't keep the same number of staff with 300 less kids.
Exactly.
That's really the point. And we don't, we want to keep our staff, we want to keep our programs, but we have to be able to pay for them.
Well, the problem is, we've got to be able to actually put the kids in the classrooms, and right now we're full. So we've got to build more schools.
Yes.
So that we have more room for more kids.
Because TM in-district kids, all of y'all have seen, we're growing. And you heard that presentation there, and, but I will get you that data before the next meeting, so you can make a better informed decision.
I guess my last ask, you said 7 pieces of data. If it could align with the end of the legislative session, I think that would be beneficial. I don't know how long that's expected to be, but.
We don't either.
Yeah, I know. I'm just knowing what comes out of there, if there's an increase to the basic allotment with vouchers, plus data provided, would make the decision so much easier than.
I can do half of that.
Yeah, I know you can do half of
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Our next board meeting is November.
13th.
The 13th of November. Sorry, you have the holidays.
Still time, if there's any movement to get, I'm assuming there's still time, you and Kathy are both here, to get that in the November paychecks? Okay.
Well, we could, normally we do it as a separate check, but, because if the meeting.
Well, if they approve the compensation
If
plan,
they approve it on the 13th,
it wouldn't be a retention stipend.
well, that's true, but yeah, that would be difficult because I have to process the payroll. Payday's that Wednesday, the 15th. We processed 2 days and they had that.
We have a special meeting?
Really.
Yes. I mean, I did 30 meetings my first
What
year.
How much
I can do
more
one
than that.
more.
How much time do you and Kathy need?
Come on, Kathy.
Create paychecks or to create?
In other words, let me give you a hypothetical. A hypothetical is, we bring back the compensation plan, they approve it. That's the hypothetical. How much time do you need? You can do a budget amendment after the fact. You don't have to do the budget amendment. How much time are you gonna need to process those calculations?
Because we'd have to touch every screen, we'd have to.
Give me,
So if we touch every screen, I'm gonna say a week.
oh, okay.
I was gonna say,
okay.
give yourself extra
Okay.
time.
All
That
right.
is extra time.
Okay,
because
good.
That's, because after
I
we
knew that was
process it, we
extra
have
time.
to
I didn't
run
do that to ask.
calculations.
Denise, what's wrong?
Nothing, nothing.
We can't talk about that because it's not on the agenda.
That's right.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Okay,
So I pull item 5.
okay. Agenda item number 6, discuss and consider the nomination and resolution of Nueces County Appraisal District Board of Directors 2024 to 2025 term place 6 election ballot.
Madam President, members of the board, I want to apologize publicly for completely dropping the ball on the appraisal district. We have on our board of trustees a leader. I've seen him in action at the appraisal district, and fortunately, we're able to take a mulligan on this because there was no nominations. But I wanted to publicly say that I dropped the ball on that, Leo. So we'll open up for nominations.
Well, I nominate Leo Gonzalez.
I guess I'm confused. You were on the board
He's
this
on the
previous?
Nominations were
He's been on
Currently-
it
last week.
Okay.
We missed the deadline.
We missed the deadline.
There's a deadline on it.
But nobody else
His
was
term is still
nominated, so
going.
it's still going.
Your current term is up in December, right?
The current term is up in December, and this next term is only for a year.
They normally send a packet, and I was waiting for the packet, so it never came.
It's a little awkward, but, what information? Okay, so like they had an outside external auditor from a totally different state come assess the refineries that greatly impacted our district. How early was that information? I guess, yeah, through the board and then to the school. But I just, yeah, I'm good with it, yep.
You don't have to be good with it.
No, I am, I'm just,
You want him to
This-
interview for the job?
no, I know, and that's what this, I didn't realize.
She's wanting information.
Yeah.
Or you want him to
I think
squeal before the?
this past year that we've had with our largest taxpayer,
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
lot of lessons learned with
Absolutely.
communication to the school district and advocacy at that the county should have done with the district.
So what an asset.
Well, there's a
having-
big,
having him.
I have a lot to say about that, but I don't think that's for.
Right.
I know, and that's why I.
That's not for this agenda item. Yeah. So I think it's a huge asset to have you. So
Well, there's one nomination. I guess we need, do you want to vote on the nominations being closed?
I don't know what the process is.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. You open up the nominations, someone's nominated you, give them an opportunity, and then you vote on whether to close the nominations, then you vote.
Motion to close nomination.
Yes.
and you second it.
Okay.
Because no one else.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the nominations for Leo Gonzalez. All those in favor? And opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
And I'll talk to you about that after.
All right.
Campaign with all your.
Agenda item number 7, discuss and consider approval of food service contract renewal.
Madam President, members of the board, based on the initial contract, you have the authority to renew, I believe it's up to 5 years? Four
additional.
Without going through the bid process. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hernandez.
Madam President, board members, good evening. Just a brief history. Back in the fall of 2021, we went out for bid process in the food service. In May of 2022, we selected Sodexo, and they received the contract. Like Mr. Van Matry said at that time, the contract's good for 1 year with the option to renew for 4 additional years. Last October, I came to you, and even though the Sodexo had only been here 3 months, we presented, and you as a team, now voted to renew them for 1 more year. At this time, it is now open again. On October the 15th, it opened up for renewal, the renewal process. So now we've got the option to terminate our contract with Sodexo and go out for rebid or self-op, or we can continue on with Sodexo for 1 more year. And so that's what we're going to determine tonight. And this will be for the 2024-2025 school year. So this contract that you approve would begin on July 1 of 2024. All right. Just a brief history of where we've been the past couple of years. I passed out some notes so you can see, follow my numbers. Basically, you just see we've had an increase in meal participation, and this is very strictly on the meal reimbursements that were submitted to TDA. If you look at the months and over the last 2 years or 3 years, we've had a steady increase in participation in the meals, and it's been good. What's led to this participation? It's just the quality of food and some of the things that Sodexo are doing. Some of the good things I'm pointing out. Item number 2 is the So Happy app. It's an app that was launched on September the 11th. It's a free app that our parents and students can download, and it gives you the menu and the nutritional values of the foods right there on your phone, so you can figure it out. We do have a couple of students with food issues, and they're able to contact the school nurse and set up a special menu. One that comes to mind is a student at the intermediate. They're gluten-free, has to have a gluten-free diet, and they prepare a full menu for the child, very comparable to what we have, and serve that child so they can eat and have the same cafeteria experience as the other kids. Some of the other things, we're looking to launch a student survey beginning next month in November. And that'll give the students an opportunity to express their desires and wants. To me, the clear message that students send to us is by what they eat. And there's a definite yes and no. Last year was the Potato Week. Potato Week was a hit in other parts of the country. At TM, the Potato Week was a bomb. We will never do the Potato Week here again. But we've tried different things, and it's been great. Another failure this past couple of weeks was the ramen noodle bowl. It's been a big hit elsewhere. It's a big hit in the restaurants around here, but it wasn't a big hit in our cafeterias. So that's something our students didn't want.
How many kids are on the committee for the surveys, like to find out whether or not that was a hit or not?
It's going to be all the students. It's going to be the entire campus will have the opportunity to vote. It's not going to be what I'm basing on the potato and the ramen noodle bowl was the participation in the meals. What we saw at the cash registers from that, and it was not successful. But in the student surveys, it's going to be open to every student at every campus. I believe middle school will be the first campus that you survey.
Middle school wanted to wait till after the BIC transition,
Okay.
but so she's agreed to do that.
Okay. So early November, we should be doing the survey.
So it would have been awesome to have these student surveys to help us make our decision on, whether or not we need to go out for bids or not.
Some of the other things that they've been doing, Big City Bites, scratch cooking, Big City Bites. Each month they pick a city, and then they specialize the food. For example, September was Boston. Apparently the specialty is chicken breast Parmesan. I would have thought it would have been lobster rolls, but chicken breast. October, which I believe it will be this Wednesday, is Seattle, and they're going to be doing the chicken teriyaki rice bowl. And then November will be Philadelphia, and of course that'll be a Philly cheesesteak. And then December is Memphis, which I thought Memphis barbecue, but they're offering the Elvis melt. Different things that they're able to offer the kids, different menus, items, different options, and this is in conjunction with their scratch cooking. One of the scratch cooking items that they just did recently, Mr. Van Matry loved, was the turkey dinner.
It was terrific.
It's just they cook the turkey, they cook everything from scratch, and they serve it to the students. And those are popular hits with the students. Another program that's currently going on is the A to Z promotion, and that's just farm fresh produce going to the cafeterias. Each week they're promoting a different, and these are just some of the flyers, like with pears. They can do a little bit about the, there's 150,000 tons of Bartlett pears that are harvested and canned each year. It talks about kale. That was a couple of weeks ago. There's more than 50 varieties and multiple colors. And then there's flyers everywhere for, the upcoming Seattle teriyaki rice bowl, just different flyers that they have around the cafeteria. Other additions that we've changed staff-wise, of course, Crystal Flores left back in May to go to the ESC2 to work for them. We hired Miss Anna Martin. She is our new food service director. We've also changed chefs. We have a new chef coming on board, Mr. Michael Smith, Chef Michael Smith, and he will start on October the 31st. You have his resume in front of you. Very experienced in culinary, done some really great places, has currently been doing some King Ranch hunting expeditions, providing them meals and stuff like that, but he's ready to get back into the actual kitchen. So we're looking forward to him joining us October the 31st. Some of the lessons that we have learned this past year, experiences that we had, if you recall back in April, we had the moldy buns. It was at the high school, there was a sleeve of buns that was served that had an excessive amount of mold on it. It wasn't just a little bit. The employee that served that was no longer an employee of Sodexo within 2 hours. They quickly addressed that and they provided training on what to look for. If you see something wrong that doesn't look right, doesn't smell right, take it off the line. Anyone has the authority to remove that. So they worked with us on that. This past September, last month, we had the what I call the ACC pizza fiasco. It was a breakfast pizza. It's a breakfast pizza. It's designed to be cooked in a covered dish, not like a traditional pizza where it's cooked in a pan. This one's supposed to be covered. The employee didn't know that and cooked it uncovered. So that was the first wrong thing that went wrong. Then we have a new delivery driver who delivered the pizza to ACC, and he wanted the kids at ACC to have a hot pizza, so he microwaved it for about 30 seconds, which really made that pizza really, really tough and unedible. So once ACC reported it, we called them, they quickly made another meal, we got it dispatched out there. But in looking at this, we looked at what was wrong, and that's why we're looking for a new chef, or we replaced the chef. They need training in all the areas. We need oversight in all the kitchens, and to make sure that we're following the recipe. Sodexo has great recipes, but we need to follow those recipes carefully. All right, and that's really where we're at, based on the participation stuff. The recommendation is that we continue on one more year with Sodexo.
I would just like to see one thing, like on the number 4, you have the big city bites and stuff. Come September and stuff, we have Hispanic Heritage Month. Maybe they can, instead of worrying about what Boston is eating, maybe we can worry about what Texas Hispanics want,
We can definitely do that, and I didn't include all the programs. Is there anything for Hispanic Month that we did, or?
Well, at all the campuses, we offer traditional Mexican food all the time on the menu, several times. Actually, for our diversity, Hispanic Month is noted in the month, so we just celebrate it through our menu, but we're already offering so many varieties of that already. So to, say, today, we're going to do tacos. Well, we're already, or enchiladas, or, it's an everyday, because we want to cater our menus to the demographics. So we do that very heavily. When we got here, right away at the high school, Monday through Friday, every day of the year, there's offered Mexican food. We never take that concept away, or the high school kids would, so we've catered our menus. Middle school, we have the teachers. We have a lot of teachers that eat at the middle school because of the cooking and for the variety of that type of thing. But yes, that is a good point, that the heritage, that we keep that with the diversity, and like you're saying, Hispanic month. These promos, that was just to try a variety of a new concept where somebody is eating like in another city or state. So, but great comment. Thank you for that.
Yeah, we can share that back up, because these are planned, when they do promotions, they plan them across the United States, so it's not just Texas-based. But that's a great point.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just, like I said earlier, I just wish we had talked to the kids prior and gotten, some of their opinions. I've had some kids come up to me and I've told them, you need to come to the board meeting, you need to let the board members know that you're not happy with the food. I can sit here and tell you what they're telling me, but they need to come and represent themselves. But had the survey gone out to these kids prior, we could have known, we're not on the campuses, we don't eat the food. So all I can do is go off what I have students telling me. I've got one that'll eat and I've got one that'll not eat. So I've got two different going on in my household, but it would just be, I want the kids involved. They're the ones eating the food. So I want to hear what they have to say.
Well, they're eating more lunches, so that means more people like them.
And with the enrollment going down and
Yeah,
the
that's what I'm saying.
participation still going up.
Yeah, because you can see, if you look at participation, last year, we beat Aramark's numbers from prior year in growth. And as we're starting this school year, we're beating our numbers from last year in continued growth with less enrollment.
But thank you on the comment, Madam President, on the survey, because and this is my DM sitting next to me to push the survey. We wanted to do it earlier, before Patrick was presenting. But we did run into other things going on. We have our TDA audit, and one of the main transitions was we were gonna start the middle school, do theirs, and we just transitioned from a breakfast in the classroom to grab and go in the hall. Teachers love it, the kids love it, but she said, let's wait and hold back on the survey. I don't want to try push too many new things on them. So that's why I turned around to Mr. Alvarado, because we could at least try to get it pushed maybe to the high school where they just do a QR code and they could take the survey and we can get it within
They'll do that.
week or two. We'll have to work with you on that, but we can work on that.
Yeah, we would love to see those, because, we want to hear from them, just like on anything that's going on in the district. The kids will tell you how it is, right?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
So that's what we want to hear. Anybody else? All right.
Madam President, members of the board, the administration recommends approving the renewal of the food service contract with Sodexo for one additional year from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025.
I have a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Ben makes that motion. Do we have a second?
You take it.
Leo seconds. We have a motion and a second for the renewal of the food service contract with Sodexo for one additional year from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. All those in favor? None opposed, motion carries 6-0. I'm going to go back to agenda item number 6. I just need to read the resolution. Be it resolved by the governing board of Tolosa Midway ISD that Leo Gonzalez is nominated for place 6, Board of Directors, Nueces County Appraisal District. And now moving on to agenda item number 8.
Madam President, members of the board, now's the time to tell us what you learned at the Tasa TASB convention in Dallas. We'll give you an opportunity.
I had a great time. It was, I went to several ones, but the one that really, there was two. One on the bond, and the school district had failed a year ago? They had failed the last year. So this time, when they went back for the bond, the ones that really pushed the bond were all the board members. They literally threw the bond at the board members, and they were doing all these kind of promotions and stuff like that. Well, it passed. They got them, the board members went out and and hustled the bond and it passed. But just there was an attorney there saying what you can and can't do. And, you know, it's scary, you know, because the
Fine
can'ts.
line, yeah.
There's a fine line. And, you know, of course, you get phone calls every day, well, this teacher told me this, if the bond passes, and I'm like, well, talk to Mr. Van Matry. I don't know anything, because there is a fine line. And so, you know, I just want us to be real cautious as a district on not to cross those lines, because there are school districts all over Texas that are not able to go out for a bond because they're sanctioned, that they can't do it for 2, 3, 4 years, and that's kind of scary. So anyway, but the bond pass was a lot of interesting stuff on how they did it. But one of them that really caught my eye was this one pill can kill, and it's about the fentanyl. I mean, there was a DEA agent there. That place was packed from wall to wall. You couldn't sit in there. There was people sitting. I mean, I got stuck standing up. And, I mean, just horrific stories on what these drugs are doing to our kids. And they actually showed a
Surveillance.
A surveillance where kids, I mean, it was funny how kids tend to stay near their school. You know, and it was weird because these two kids in a car at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, drove to their high school around the back. Well, I mean, there's cameras, and one of them, one of the kids had taken a pill, and his friend noticed that the kid was getting sick, not responding, got him off the car. The kid fell behind the car. He was technically dead for over 30 minutes while they worked on him, and then the kid just woke up. I mean,
when they used that, I think the term was Norcan, right? That's the first time I'd heard of it.
Yeah.
On that video, and so the fact that we have that, and I didn't realize that we had such a big vaping problem, you know, so it was pretty eye-opening that, you know, I'm, I guess, disconnected from the kids, that's such a problem. And it doesn't take much to venture from one, you know, form of you know, to another, and that stuff's, it was pretty scary.
There was one where a mom, of course, a student, he was 13 years old, he took a pill at night, and she went in the morning, he was ice cold. I mean, he didn't make it. But, you know, it is a crisis throughout the whole country. And, you know, so you start hearing all this vaping problems that we have here, and it scares me because, you know, I would imagine that that's the next step for people who are in the illegal field. I'm afraid that that's going to be their next step, to sell these kids these vaping things with, you know, stuff that's a lot more dangerous than what they think it is. And that really scares us, and that's why I asked about the vaping, you know, monitors and
I think
stuff.
that's already happening. They're already selling vapes with that stuff in it.
Oh, well, you see, I mean, I don't know, but it's even scarier. There was so many different items that I went to. Can't remember them all.
I saw a picture of you at one of them, Juan Cruz.
Oh, yeah, Juan Cruz, yeah. That was good. He gave a real good presentation. I wanted to have caught the early morning with Abel Herrero where he was talking about the vouchers, but it was across the highway, and I said, there's no way I could walk across the highway, I wouldn't make it. So we were able to catch Juan Cruz's, and that was really interesting also on when the district needs an attorney, when you can call him. There was from Brooks County, I think the superintendent from Brooks County. It was Brooks County.
Brooks County.
And she was real, and then of course, our friends from down the street from Mathis, Melinda was there also with him. And so they had a lot of good explanations. All in all, the conference was great. I thank the district for sending us and putting us up. And I think it's really important for the board members to go to these conferences because you learn so much there. And I want to thank everybody. I was the delegate this year again, and that's just an awesome thing, how the politics of the state education system works. It's pretty cool.
And when they have their discussions, right?
Yeah, the discussions, yeah. So they get after each other too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Well,
I mean, Ben did a pretty good, summation of events. I had some good dialogue with other, I talked to some superintendents and some other board members, and with all this, the forefront of everybody's mind was the recent vote that, we were not able to extend, these raises to our employees, to the district employees and teachers, administrators. And so my concern, and maybe can I talk about this now?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was happening.
Because it was dialogues I was having with people, is, the trajectory of our general fund. And I think everybody knows it, and we've had a couple of tough years, and, we did some improvements maybe that perhaps could have waited. I think we've, talked about that. So my dialogue was then with, where's your general fund, and what's your comfort level? And, I had some people tell me they were 12 months of general fund. I had some people tell me they were 33%. And I didn't talk to anybody that were where we were. And that was kind of my concern. And so they seem to hold that in reverence, that number. So I would like for us to, and that doesn't mean that, I don't want to go back and look at some of this stuff, but I want to be careful with that number and hold it in high regard. So, but it was fantastic talking to, supers and talking to other board members from various parts of the state. Matter of fact, one of them had interviewed here prior to, not when you were here, but when I think Fernandez was interviewing. He's out of Venus right now, ISD. Patrick Torres was his name. Anyway, this small school district outside of Dallas, I believe. Anyway, so you get a chance to talk to a number of different people, and they're good. It's good because you can kind of, if they've got a lot of years of experience, pick their brain, and I think it's nice event where you can do that. But
well, I was going to talk about the same one. I went to the same one on the bond, and that was interesting. And I think I may have sent you some screenshots and stuff that I took, and everything about it, because they had some good ideas which have been brought up. And as well, I was going to go to that one Pill Can Kill, but there was another one that I wanted to go to. And I went to the little farm cruise that you talked about. That was interesting as well, and everything. But the one, and for some reason my phone won't pick up the internet in here, but it was the coffee bean. He had one of the general sessions there, and to hear this man's story, he was a kid of privilege, went to college, played football, got out, worked at a Wall Street investment firm in Dallas. And he said, I was feeling tired of this. He said, man, this buddy is coming in. You're going to get fired. But I got something down. Let's go to the parking lot. I went down to the parking lot, and they fired up some crack cocaine or something, or meth. I think it was meth. And he is hooked. And one time he was hooked.
That's what they say, that's the gateway now.
He was hooked after that. And for several years he lost everything, living in an old crack house. And he said he was sitting there, and his angels that saved him had flak jackets and were on a SWAT team. Anyway, he had been the North Side Burglar, he got his name, North Side Burglar. And he got sent to prison for 60 years. And he said, that's a life sentence for me. But he did everything right, and he listened to this one guy that he talked to. He said, there's 3 things you can be when you go to prison, because he didn't know how to act. He says, let me tell you something. He says, boil water, you got 3 things. Put a carrot in it, what does it do? Get soft? What happened to you? And you just give it. Put an egg in there, what does it turn hard? You can turn hard. Or, wait, do coffee bean in there. Colors the water around it. You know. And I was impressed with that. And it goes on, he got out of prison, but he's on parole.
He got out early though.
He got out early, whatever, how many years?
7
years. Point
He got
something
lucky.
years. He got lucky because he did everything right. He was being the coffee bean. Anyway, he's still on parole.
Was he a keynote speaker?
Yes, he was a keynote speaker. Very energetic. And I had
Damon
his.
West was
it Damon West?
Yeah, Damon West.
David West, yes. And then I was so impressed. I went to his session on Sunday morning. And he went into a little more depth of it. And there happened to be a lady that was the best friends with this guy he met in the county lockup before he went to prison, who had been in and out of jail for drugs and everything. There was his sister's best friend in high school, and she knew the guy and everything. The guy had actually overdosed, and he had been trying to find him. Never could find him. Finally found out it, got to meet with his parents and mother, daughter, and this one lady says, I gotta show you this. He called this lady up there, and they finished up the story, and he went on with other prison stories and everything. He said, I'll be able to vote when I'm 95 years old. You know, but anyway, it was interesting. And then the kids' performances at the general sessions, those were the best. I mean, my gosh, our kids could do something like that. So
Aldine,
Aldine.
oh my God, that was just
There's something else.
amazing what they did.
And because they are a low socioeconomic, large school district, they had some outstanding kids. I tell you what, that one little guy.
The mariachi singer, he came out and sang my, I was like, wow.
What was he, about maybe that tall?
Yeah, but he was, I think, what, 2nd grade?
First grade, wasn't it?
First grade and 2nd grade, yeah.
Something like that.
It was just awesome.
It was
But,
something else.
I mean, that mariachi came out and just blew the whole thing away.
Yeah, they did good. That's why we need to, well, somebody needs to be on the TASB board and someone gets to be
There you go.
on the superintendent's board.
Matthew McConaughey?
Oh, he wasn't
didn't
there.
show up.
He didn't show up. He didn't show up. He canceled.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did,
Wow.
he canceled on us, everything. Got to see a lot of good people I hadn't seen. Well, I saw a guy I met at my first conference back in 1998 from West Texas. We'd always met with each other and hadn't seen each other for years. And all of a sudden, we bumped into each other and looked at each other. Man, you've changed, so have you.
That's
Well,
awesome.
like Bill said, you meet a lot of people, get to talk to a lot of different people. Saw a gentleman was started out as a para here. That's a superintendent up in East Texas.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Those are great updates.
Thank you.
Right.
Food was too good.
The food was too good.
The food was good.
Food's always good, isn't it? Agenda item number 9, discuss and consider approval of delegation of authority to superintendent under chapter 49.
Mr. Carroll?
This is the method we have to do every year, where you basically have to approve sending money back to the state. So it's the same as we've done the last few years. You're basically approving the superintendent, you're granting the superintendent the authority. And all that means is we go online to the TA system and once this meeting is done, and I have the official minutes from this meeting that includes that paragraph that you've authorized the superintendent the authority to do that. I upload the minutes, and that's what we have to do to allow the state to bill us and tell us to send money back to the state.
Yeah.
So this evening, we're just asking, like we've done in the past, to approve the item as presented.
Because if you don't do it, they do what?
I was gonna say, do we have to do that?
Well,
They threaten a lot of others.
I haven't heard what the rogue districts that have said they're not gonna send any money.
Because it's for next year.
For next year.
It's next year.
They haven't actually done it yet.
Yeah, this is,
Past year,
but this right now is actually for this year. This is for.
oh, this year,
uh,
the 23, 24.
I guess
324.
I'm slightly confused. What does that have to do with purchasing attendance credits?
That's the wording that they use. That's what making a recapture payment is. They call it purchasing attendance credits. That's a TEA term. I don't know, doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what they call it.
Been doing that for a while.
Because when you're subject to recapture, you've got 5 choices. You can consolidate with another district, you can detach property. There's 2 weird things on there, something about technology consortium, which I don't think anybody's ever done. Or you purchase attendance credits, which is, you send your excess money back to the state.
Okay.
And we've already, they require you before you can set your tax rate for the year, you have to submit your, which one of those 5 you're gonna do. So we did that back then, and we said we're gonna purchase attendance credits, and then we have until January the 15th to do this process.
I was gonna say, I still have the same comment from when we were doing budget sessions, and I believe there's more tax breaks to be had for our community that we need to seriously look into, as opposed to recapture items.
Any other discussion?
Okay, Madam President, members of the board, it is the administration's recommendation that the board accept the superintendent's recommendation to delegate contractual authority to obligate the school district under Texas Education Code 11-.1511C4 to the superintendent as presented for the 2023-2024 school year. We delegated contractual authority to obligate the school district under the Texas Education Code, TEC 11.1511C4, to the superintendent solely for the purpose of obligating the district under Texas Education Code 48.257 and Texas Education Code Chapter 49, subchapters A and D, and the rules adopted by the Commissioner of Education as authorized under Texas Education Code 49.006. The authority includes approval of the agreement for the purchase of attendance credit.
I'll make that motion, but I was going to use your short statement here to accept the superintendent's recommendation to delegate contractual authority to obligate the school district under Texas Education Code 11.115 sub C 4 to the superintendent as presented.
Do we have a second? Janie seconds. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to discuss and consider approval of consent agenda informational items. Number 1, budget amendments. Any questions or comments?
Sorry, they're in order, right? Yeah, do you want to provide a synopsis of your budget
Of the
amendment?
budget amendment, it's
Yeah.
simply, normally the budget rules are you spend it or you lose it, but if we have major projects or major things that happen, like last year it was the football field. This year, the cafeteria tables that we ordered, they They didn't come in as of August 31st, but we already have the funds committed, mostly in the food service fund, but we have to pay a fraction of it out of local funds because they say the tables aren't 100% used, only for the food service. So since the tables didn't come in by August 31st, we're just rolling the PO over. What's going to happen is in the audit, the funds are going to drop back into the fund balance of the food service and the general fund temporarily, but I'm asking you to re-encumber them and add them to the budget for this year because they didn't come in time. And that's the only item this year of that nature that we roll over.
I was a little confused.
And it's two separate things because it's out of two different funds.
Okay.
There's the biggest percentage is out of the food service fund, and then the smaller.
What are you doing with the retainage for the stadium?
Actually, I got official word from Sergio that it was substantially complete by August 31st. So everything is getting expensed. I'm booking payables. We haven't paid it off yet, but it's going to be fully expensed in the audit. As of August 31st, everything is expended. We just haven't paid it yet. It's still as a payable.
Any other questions about this budget amendment? Okay, what about the check, number 2, check payment register?
Still, if we can get it in a digital form, that'd be great. And the labor market analysis from Career Craft, what's that associated with?
I think that's
Dr. White?
I think that's career and technology.
Yeah, that's just a contracted
That's the
service we use for
dashboard?
CCMR dashboard. It's progress monitoring and tracking the students for their CCMR. It's kind of what you speak about. In terms of the live data feed on the dashboards, our CTE program utilizes that feature through them. Very, very important to the program.
It's part of the CNA that they have to do
Yeah, it's all,
to compare the programs we offer versus the jobs available in our area. They have to match, and if they don't match, then we get a massive ding.
and that's also part of how we complete the Perkins application, triangulating that data, since that's more of a federal requirement.
That makes sense.
Number 3, September 2023 financials. Any questions
I
there?
know we all kind of talked about it, but I guess maybe I hope only maybe just for the general fund, but if you want me to just add another page and say without the encumbrances, just actual expenditures. Just things that we've written checks for that we've already actually paid for, not things that we've, including the encumbrances.
Yes, correct. And then also, I guess this was the first time I saw more funds, different types of funds. Like, what's the buildings from fund?
The building fund
Oh, I
is
thought
just-
the specialty one, that was pretty cool, right? Oh, I wish I'd seen that before.
Which one?
The specialty,
Special revenue.
yeah, knowing where all of the grant money and everything is coming from in one concise, I hadn't seen a document that way before.
The building fund that's just the last remaining amount. It's been earning some interest, but from the last maintenance tax notes we did in 2018, 2017, it's this, we had just had a little bit left in there, and it's still earning a little bit interest, but we haven't fully expended that money yet.
Why is that, I guess, in a different fund? Or-
Well, because it was a maintenance tax note.
Oh, okay, so
was-
that would be,
It was, it's in its own separate fund. We sell those bonds, those monies have to stay in a separate fund. And since it's maintenance, it has to be something, can't do anything brand new with it. You have to either renovate something or repair something or replace something. You can't do anything new since it's a maintenance tax note.
Yeah.
But I think, I'm speaking for Patrick, but it's just kind of a little, we have that in case
Something goes wrong. We got a little cushion.
Chiller?
we have, yeah.
Chiller, gas lines that fail on inspection.
and, we're still super early in the budget, but, and I guess once you get the expected percentage where it should be, or budget the prior year,
Historical.
it'd be nice to know if you're forecasting, anything to go over budget, or, yeah. If that makes sense.
Any other questions on that? Number 4, certification of tax levy for 2023. Any questions on that? Number 5, enrollment report. Any questions on that?
I was wondering if we can add attendance tracking to the enrollment report. I think that'd be beneficial, especially since it's directly tied to our costs.
I can put it in connections, because I get that every Friday.
And number 6, regular and special called board meeting minutes. Everybody good? Okay. Any recommendation?
It is the administration's recommendation that the board approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Have a motion?
I'll make that.
And I'll second that. We have a motion and do you have a question?
I'll second.
Oh, okay.
He said
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
It's all right.
It's all right.
Probably just didn't
I
hear
didn't see
me.
it, I was looking down.
So I have a motion and a second for administration's recommendation that the board approve the consent agenda items as presented. All those in favor? None opposed, motion carries 6-0. Our future meeting is November 13th. That's a regular called board meeting, and if we have another one come up, we'll send that out via email. So, do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? Ben
I'll second.
and Paul? I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor? None opposed, motion carries 6-0. The time is 9:20. This meeting is adjourned.